Streamlabs alert. Streamlabs desktop. Document. Button. Click the visual novel row 1 column 2 of 3. Stream document. Button. Click the and save for X. Grade column 3 and save for X. Document. Button. Click the visual novel row 1. Streamlabs. Click the visual novel. Click the visual novel. Sleep mode on.
Start, menu, quit, menu, quit, menu. Start, main menu, option selected. Load. About, controls, quit, display windowed. Display full screen selected. Text speed bar. Music volume bar. Text speed bar. Music volume bar. Text speed bar. Activate. Decrease. Increase. Deactivate. Display full screen text speed bar. Activate. Decrease. Decrease. In. Deactivate. Music volume bar. Sound volume bar. Mute all. Mute text speed. Display. Quit. Control. About. Load. Options. Main menu. Start. Press spacebar, left click, or enter to continue. Blake, the visual novel contains themes around mental health, violence, and destructive behaviors. The images, themes, and language used within this game may be disturbing or triggering to some players. Viewer discretion is advised. Press V to toggle self-voicing. For more options, go to the settings, the cog in the top right corner, and select controls. Double-click to continue. Settings. Settings, back. Back, settings. The screen is black. Settings, back. The screen is black. Open eyes. Step forward. Settings. Open eyes. Blake felt the cold air on his face as he opened his eyes. Settings. Blake felt the Image shows Blake is standing on the ledge of a tall building and looking down at the streets. Set. Image. He stepped back from the ledge. Settings. He stepped back. Blake woke up. Blake, what a weird dream, it felt so real. I must have slept so heavy I didn't even hear my alarm go off. Setting. Blake was seldom tardy for work or any other occasion for that matter. No time for his morning peanut butter on toast. He couldn't be late. He was still considered new at ICC, only days away from completing probation, and he had to make a good impression. Blake, better get going. Setting. Blake, close-up image of Blake picking a stone from the sole of his shoe. Setting. Back. Close-up. Settings. Life can often be unpredictable, and this was particularly true for Blake. Random happenstances had a way of following him, like a stubborn pebble wedged into the sole of his shoe. No amount of picking would dislodge it, and it was accompanied by a certain amount of discomfort with every step. And, he would never admit it, but sometimes, he may have even consciously trod on the stones of spontaneity. Logo of the word Blake shows on the screen and turns upside down. It's an ambigram, so the image still reads as Blake. Click to continue. There will be a short pause. On a daily basis, Blake's colleagues at ICC would bicker over the best immersive gaming experience of the year, brag about their newest techie purchases, and speculate on who would next meet their demise on the popular, weekly e-screen installment of Fixing Good. Max, Blake's played it? Max's eyes suddenly popped up from behind the top of the computer screen. Max, don't you think the offline co-op mode AI in Fuelcores is totally Ben, am I right? Max, I'm right, right? Said Max. Max leaned towards Blake's direction. With a hand walling her mouth and a forcible whisper, she exclaimed. Said it. Max, back me up, Blake. Orlo spurted out an intentionally inelegant laugh, which in turn made Max giggle. Orlo, bahaha. Ben. What are you? Are you from another planet? Settings. Orlo, what the fuck does Ben mean? Orlo, you're just making up words. Max, it means ridiculous. Just like your laugh. Orlo, anyway, he doesn't give two hoots about Fuelcores, you big nerd. Max, you can talk. You're the only one here who owns a whole VR room. Orlo, last time you get to use it then. There they go again. Hurry, hey Blake. Settings, hurry, oh, God, not her. Please, not her. He swiveled in his chair. Blake, hurry. Hurry was a masterpiece, best admired from afar. She was one of those beautiful paintings that could speak 8,000 words without saying anything. Seriously though, she could try not saying anything sometimes. Hurry, did you have a good weekend? Her fingers spiraled in her hair as she tilted her head in curiosity. Blake, didn't do much, just the usual. You. Why did he even ask? Hurry, OMG, yes. I went on a road trip with my girlies to the forest. We ate marshies over the fire, they were delish. Hurry, and I saw a unicorn. My friend said I wouldn't see one out there, but I finally did. If every sentence she spoke was written, Blake imagined they would always end in exclamation marks. Blake, excuse me, what? Hurry, I heard a noise in the middle of the night, unzipped my tent, and in the distance, I swear I saw a unicorn galloping through the trees. I must have startled it. Did she seriously think unicorns exist? Blake, it was probably a cow, or a stag, or something. Just, not a unicorn. Hurry's skin flushed to a color similar to Max's hair. Hurry, oh. Yeah, you're right. Setting, hurry, well, you should come along with us next time. We could have a barbecue at night and look for shooting stars. Putting up with her for a whole weekend would be a tough feat, but maybe it wouldn't be that bad. Sure. Blake, sure. Hurry, okay, cool. Blake smiled softly and turned back to his work. Resume playing. Resume playing. Blake smiled softly and turned back to his work. A giggle sang from Hurry as she headed back to her female colleagues with a small skip in her step, eager to tell them about the conversation. A slender figure hovered beside Blake's desk. It was the junior techspert, Lee. ICC snapped him up before he could throw his graduation hat in the air. No one knew what Lee's forename was. Most people in the office didn't know it was his surname. But Blake had noticed. He noticed Lee's email address started with S.Lee, not the standardized first name surname layout. Lee was like a ball of plasma that dissipated nervous energy. His vision flitted from one thing to another, mostly managing to avoid meeting guys. It was as though he was preoccupied with taking in everyone and everything. He displayed anxious head twitches after every sentence, but his voice wore a friendly and happy tone. Most of the time, he was elusive and hardly ever spotted around the office, or maybe the word noticed was more apt. Lee, hey Blake. Lee held a smile, his eyes scoured over Blake's desk space. Fine by me. Lead the way. Blake, fine by me. Lead the way. Max and Orlo continued to argue over Fugors behind the desk, and they looked like they were about to try to involve him again. Now Blake had an excuse to slip away from the office debate and abstain from choosing sides. Well, hello there, Mr. O'Gartley. How's things? Going well, I hope. Ryan was chief operating officer at ICC. Whenever Blake saw her in the office, she was usually rushing around on urgent business. To be in her position within one of, if not, the world's leading tech firm, meant she had to be extremely efficient. Although Blake had been working there for a while, he hadn't talked to Ryan much. It was always brief pleasantries and small talk, so he was taken aback when she said his name. They weren't on first name terms yet. Blake, all good, thanks. I've been told Mr. Gourdane wants to see me about something. Is he he should be back any minute. Setting, back. This is kind of embarrassing, but I've been meaning to have a get-to-know-you chat. Settings, back. He should be back any minute. Setting, settings, back. Back, settings, back. Blake, all good, thanks. I've been told Mr. Gourdane wants to see me about something. Is he about? He should be back any minute. This is kind of embarrassing, but I've been meaning to have a get-to-know-you chat. I've just been so busy, then poof, 2 months have whizzed by. She gave an encouraging and gentle smile. For someone with so many plates to spin, she had a defyingly calm and welcoming aura. The conversation was cut short as Jonathan entered the office. Jonathan, I see you're already here. Welcome. Take a seat, Blake. Jonathan, will you be joining us? I'm a busy bee today, so I must dash. Blake, we'll have that catch up soon. Back, setting, back. Set, back, I'm a busy bee today, oh, and Jonathan, I've left those papers you asked for on your desk. Still have no idea why you use that stuff? She chuckled. Jonathan, that's lovely. Thank you, He nodded in appreciation. A barely visible wave from her hand could be seen as she rushed out the door, set on the work ahead. Jonathan settled down into his overpriced, real leather, ergonomic, I'm the founder of this successful corporation chair. All of his energy turned to Blake. Jonathan, so, Blake. Jonathan, so, Blake, you wanted to see me, Mr. Gourdane? It was a regular occurrence for Jonathan to request many meetings with his staff. He said he liked to check up on the newest members, to see how they are settling in. Jonathan, this is some fine work you've carried out on the Promenade case. The only thing I'd like to point out is the daily stats on your spreadsheet, they don't correspond to the correct dates. Jonathan, apart from that minor alteration, it's all looking very dandy. Jonathan was holding a copy of the screenshot in his hand, a paper screenshot. Blake had rarely seen paper up close. Jonathan laid it down, flat against the table, and slid it towards Blake. Jonathan, back. Jonathan laid it down, flat against the table, and slid it towards Blake. The material bowed upwards from the rush of air in front of him before it rested back down. Settings. Jonathan, back. Set. Jonathan, paper used to be made from trees, a little known fact for you. Jonathan, now they only manufacture it by 3D printing a synthetic material, and it feels a lot smoother in comparison to the original. Blake reached over and grasped onto the sheet of paper. It felt drier than he'd anticipated, and this made him notice how clammy his palms were. Jonathan, this particular paper more accurately replicates what paper used to be like, compared to the tat you get over in Newstown. Jonathan, this is the good stuff. The cream of the crop. Made for the odd enthusiasts, like myself. And I use odd in all manners of the term. Blake studied the figures on the handheld screenshot. Blake, looks like a couple of equations have gone out of sync. It'll be a quick fix. My apologies. After analyzing the data, he set the paper down on the table, and to his disdain, his grip left behind creased remnants. Jonathan, good. It's no problem. Jonathan, anywho, that's not the reason I asked you here. Jonathan, I know you haven't been in the company very long, and you have quite the workload. A stress headache started to rear its ugly head, and momentary double vision distracted Blake. He thought about how no one had come up with a cure for migraines yet, staring at screens all day couldn't be healthy. Thankfully it was brief for Blake, but he realized he'd completely missed what Jonathan had said. He hoped IT wasn't anything too important. Blake missed what Jonathan said. How should he react? Smile and Blake missed what Jonathan said. How should he react? Smile and nod. Sorry, what? Settings. Smile and nod. Blake smiled and nodded as if he'd caught the last part of the conversation. Jonathan nodded reassuringly and delivered a warm smile. Jonathan, you're doing well, Blake. I hope you realize that. Jonathan, I have an exceedingly crucial project coming up, so I need someone I can count on. I'd like you to be a part of it. Jonathan, Jonathan, I have an exceedingly crucial project coming up, so I need someone I can count on. I'd like you to be a part of it. It will allow you to show me what you can manifest. Settings. Jonathan, and the annual well-being test deadline is today, so if you haven't done it yet, make sure to get it sent off. Jonathan, it should be in your inbox, it's only a few questions long, shouldn't take much time to do. Max and Orlo were still deep in conversation. Did they ever do any work? Settings. Orlo, do you remember Eric, the droid guard, who used to bounce the reception? Max, yeah, I do actually. What happened to him? Orlo, I heard they keep him in a big bag in the room behind the front desk. Max, really? Orlo, yeah, he was sacked. Max, oh man, I fell for that one. I wonder what actually happened to him though. A notification popped up on Blake's screen. One new email. Blake, I should probably do the well-being test. New email from ICCHQ, well-being test, action required. New email from Jonathan Gourdane, meeting invite. New email from Andy Rod, Sign Hari's birthday card. Settings. New email, today, meeting invite. From Jonathan Gourdain. Required attendees, Blake O'Gartley and Chris Mortar. Meeting date, 23rd of March from 1 p.m. until 2 p.m. Location, Jonathan's office. Subject, blank space. Meeting notes, to discuss a new project I'm assigning to you both. I ask of you, kindly, not to mention this project to any of your colleagues. Accept. Decline. Accept. New email from ICCHQ, well-being test, action required. New email from Andy Rod, sign Hari's birthday card. Settings, sign Hari's birthday card. From, Andy Rod. Email contents, it's Hari's birthday in less than 2 weeks. Please make sure that you sign her e-card. Accept selected. Write a message for Hari's birthday card. To Hari. To Milton. Don't write a name. Settings. To Hari. Happy birthday. My condolences. HB. Settings. HB. My condolences. Happy birthday, Blake. Sam XXX. X. Sam XXX. Blake. Sam XXX. X. Settings. X. Sam XXX. X. Your message has been added to Hari's birthday card. Settings. Your message has been. New email from ICCHQ. Settings. New email from ICCHQ. Well-being test. Employee, Blake O'Gartley. This form is not anonymous. All information is secure and shared only with ICC's specialist department for the use of monitoring all ICC staff's well-being. Support may be offered to tailor to your needs at work. Settings. Well-being. Settings. Back. Settings. 1. How are you feeling today, Blake? Great. Good. Okay. Not okay. Terrible. Settings. Not okay. 2 out of the following fears, which do you relate to the most right now? Failure at my job. Struggling to pay my bills. Struggling to pay my bills. Struggling to pay my bills. Someone watching me in my own privacy. Being framed for a crime I didn't commit. Harming someone. Settings. Someone watching me in my own privacy. 3. If you could see a scale above people's heads that measured one part of their status, what would you want to know about them? Their happiness. Their wealth. Their honesty. Their naivete. Settings. Their wealth. 4. How often would you say your days differentiate enough for you to distinguish within a week? Every day is different. The majority of days are different. The majority of days are different. Not many days are different. Every day is the same. Well-being test, employee, Blake O'Gartley. Result, work harder and you'll be less distracted. Settings, well-being test. Max, nope, you're wrong. Kill VR is a good person, that's why they do what they do. Setting, Matt, Orlo, if that's true, why have they accepted all the money made from the publicity, instead of giving it to charity? Orlo, I know Blake agrees with me here. We were talking about it last week. Max, stop trying to drag people into your losing battle, Orlo. It doesn't work. Orlo, so it's only okay when you do it? Agree with Orlo that Kill VR is not a good person. Ignore them and look busy. Ask them if they ever stop arguing. Agree with Orlo that Kill VR is not a good person. Ignore them and look busy. Agree, Blake. I agree with Orlo, actually. Max let out a huff and rolled her eyes. Max. Settings. Max started to frantically prod at her screen. All eyes slowly looked around at her. Max, what the helicopter? Max, has someone changed the details on my spreadsheet for the radar project? All of my work, it's totally gone. Max, Orlo, this isn't one of your pranks, is it? Orlo, nope. Not me. I swear. Offer to help Max fix her spreadsheet. Tell Max about your spreadsheet. Don't get involved. Offer to help Max fix her spreadsheet. Blake, I can help you get your save file from yesterday's backup, but it won't have any of the work you've done today. Max, thanks, Blake. That's kind of you, but I can sort it. Max and Orlo both smiled in appreciation. Max, I don't know why anyone would go into my work and change it though. Orlo, I know. It's Ven. Max, that's not what that word means, Orlo. Jonathan, welcome, Blake. Jonathan, I'm so glad you accepted my invite, and it's good to see you again. I have an exciting project for you to get involved in. Usually meetings were held in one of the 4, 12-seater meeting rooms, however, this seemed more of a cozy affair. Blake preferred Jonathan's office. The meeting rooms were always set at an extreme temperature. He theorized that the temperature was deliberate, a freezing cold room when meetings required full alertness and flowing creativity, or a toasty warmth that could lull you into a light slumber of compliance when the agenda was one where fewer opinions were appreciated. Jonathan, Chris, this is Blake, one of our newest recruits. For a man of such otherworldly stature, Chris gave Blake the most disappointingly limp handshake. Maybe he was exercising caution. After all, those paws could easily crush a coconut. Hi Chris. Nice to meet you. Hi. Don't say anything. Settings. Don't. Hi Chris. Blake. Hi Chris. Nice to meet you. Chris, and you. Jonathan, gentlemen, take a seat. Chris and Blake shuffled onto the sofa in the office, perched beside one another. Jonathan stood in front of them and made use of the projected touch screen on the wall behind him. Jonathan, you may have noticed the agenda in the meeting invite was missing. Blake and Chris nodded in tandem. Jonathan brought up the meeting invite onto the screen and swiped his hand across the empty space after the word agenda. A black box appeared over the text, which highlighted and revealed the words Project HG. The project name had been written in white against the background which had concealed the words on the screen. Jonathan smirked to himself, thrilled at the opportunity to finally employ a classic spy trick, used by protagonists in the espionage novels of bygone years, that he so loved. He steeled himself for the introduction, intended to be seared with finesse, sprinkled with style, and served up with panache. At least, this was how he hoped to deliver it. Jonathan often considered himself a pompous, old fool, and marveled at the fact the rest of the world hadn't caught on yet. Jonathan, every instant message and email you send. Every word you speak or text. Every update you make on your phone. Jonathan, every movement when your e-screens, consoles, and computers are on, they are. Jonathan, all recording your data. Blake suppressed a smile, musing that, here he was, witnessing Jonathan at his finest. The gleam in the CEO's eyes was like that of a religious zealot, compelling those around him to follow. Blake wondered if this was a trait Jonathan had always possessed, or if it was a latent ability that manifested later in life. Jonathan, for a select few shadowy clients, whose circumstances and contracts decree they shall remain anonymous, we have been working on Project HG. Jonathan, a system that blocks all records of the sender's ID, location, even their existence, when used. Jonathan, imagine text filling your screen as though plucked from the ether itself, utterly incognito. Just think of the military and security applications. Jonathan, it's as though you're receiving a message from a ghost, a spy's dream. Heavens! Why do you think they call themselves spooks? Jonathan decided to omit the line about it having nothing to do with their regular haunts, comprising of flash car dealerships and boudoirs of high-class call girls. He concluded that an extended metaphor could often prove irksome, and the mention of fast cars and loose women may distract his listeners' minds from the crucial subject matter. Jonathan took out a flat, handheld screen, not any model Blake recognized. The phone in the center of the desk released a disruptive twitter, in between Chris and Blake. Jonathan, who does it say is calling? The display unit lit up and displayed. Incoming call from. The incoming call stopped. Jonathan, complete anonymity. His voice lowered toward the end of the word anonymity for dramatic effect, and he interlaced his fingers in a satisfied power pose. Blake could only hope that one day he'd be able to captivate an audience with such a passionate verve. And although Jonathan's theatrical performance was inspiring, to say the least, he found his attention dared to flicker over to Chris. Once Blake had noted Chris's inelegant idiosyncrasies out of the corner of his eye, he couldn't help monitoring him periodically throughout the meeting. Chris's left hand was placed on the smooth, black, meeting room table in a fist, whilst the right held an obsolete and unusually large E-pen, positioned as if to note something down, but not accompanied by a tablet. The feeling of Chris's gaze twitching over him, along with an uncomfortably blank expression, caused an uneasiness to slither through Blake. Jonathan, primarily, the HG device is advanced crypto processing software. Jonathan, we collated feedback from our clients, and the results showed that they desired software that solely connects to the HG device, rendering it incompatible with any other hardware. Jonathan, this means the software is highly, if not completely, secure from interception and piracy. Jonathan, there are currently two types of HG, the flat tablet, and the touchboard tablet. Jonathan showed them the sleek black tablet. The touchboard slid out from underneath the screen with a satisfyingly smooth click into position. The keys illuminated the touchboard, once the gadget was activated. Blake, so, if I send a message to someone who has the device, how does that work? Jonathan, good question, Blake. You cannot send a direct message to someone who has an HG device, unless they have initiated conversation because there is no number to identify the user with. Jonathan, this means, you can reply to emails and texts, but not initiate a voice or video call. You also cannot see messages sent from an HG device if you log into the same account on an external device. Jonathan, exempli gratia, Chris, if I sent you an email from the HG device and you opened the email from your home computer, you would then only be able to access the message on the said home computer. Jonathan, you would not be able to view it if you logged onto your email account from another device such as your phone or work computer, understand? Blake and Chris bobbed their heads in unison again. Jonathan, when you use the HG device you create a new, untraceable path for your message. So, if you send a message to someone from the HG, the recipient will see it and be able to retain it. However, it won't show who it is from. Jonathan, keeping a record will deem the message unsecure, because if the recipient's device falls into a third party's hands, they can retrieve the information. Jonathan, additionally, due to the state-of-the-art software embedded into the message, you cannot forward, copy, or print screen any of the content received. Jonathan, the HG device user can alternatively choose an expiration date for the message to disappear from the recipient's device, or even once the recipient navigates away from the opened message. Jonathan, essentially, a self-destruct button, if you will. Jonathan, you'll both be given a prototype version to work on and familiarize yourselves with. Jonathan, I ask that they remain within the premises and that you store them inside your lockers. Once the meeting had adjourned, Jonathan caught Blake's attention before he could leave the room. Jonathan, what did you think? Blake, it was great. I'm excited to work on this project, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Jonathan, and what are your impressions of your new project colleague, Chris? Blake, he seems a little odd. Jonathan, don't worry, he's a good man. I think you two will work very well together. A few hours flew by. Blake swore he felt the vibrations from the floor and up through his chair, as the foot stomps came closer to his desk. Stomp. The screen vibrates as Chris gets closer. Settings. Stomp. The screen vibrates again. Settings. Just as Chris approached, a loud sneeze trumpeted from behind Blake's computer. Max, achoo. The gentle giant's attention averted to Max. Chris, bless you, Max. Max, 156. Orlo, what are you on about? Orlo always piped up whenever Max said something. It was like they had a mutual agreement that they were a duo. Chris stood motionless and bewildered. Max, a wise man once told me to count my blessings. An expression of smugness took over Max's face. In her mind she saw her audience erupt into laughter. Back in reality, there was a mental facepalm and weak chuckle from the surrounding desks apart from Chris, who still looked baffled by the whole encounter. He was unfamiliar with this part of the office, he rarely had a reason to be there. Chris, I think you dropped this in the meeting room. The bass of the giant's voice reverberated in Blake's chest as he handed over Blake's keycard. Such an awkward, unnatural-looking smile. It must be forced. Still, Jonathan wanted him to give Chris the benefit of the doubt. Blake, thanks. Blake gave him a friendly smile and a nod. Chris stayed put, lingering momentarily, as if unsure about something, then took his leave. Max watched in awe as the Gigantor trudged back to the second floor. Max, how did he know my name? Orlo, geez, the size of that man. Orlo, he could probably rip your head clean off your shoulders, if he wanted to. Orlo, and I bet he's an absolute beast in the bedroom. He playfully wiggled his eyebrows at Max. Max, SHH, knock it off, Orlo. Orlo, maybe we should invite him out for drinks tonight, seeing as it's Friday and we hardly know the guy. Could be an interesting man underneath all that beefy muscle. Max, if you carry on talking about him like he's a piece of meat, I'm going to start some beef with you. Orlo, as if you would. We all know that you're a coward. Max, come on then, show me what you've got. Make your move. Oh, God. They were back on the puns. Terrible ones at that. Although it could be distracting on occasions, Blake enjoyed the breaks from figures and processes. He was grateful to be around friendly colleagues in his work life. They were almost like a family to him, in a strange way. Orlo, enough with this bullshit. Orlo, Blake, you in for drinks at Saucy Mama's tonight too? Yeah, sure. Lie, I'm busy. Settings. Yeah, Blake, go on then, I'll come along. He decided it would be a good idea to get out for the night and maybe take some time to get to know his colleagues a little better. Saucy Mama's was primarily a burger joint which served as a cafe by day and transformed into a bar by night. Settings. Saucy, famous for their pies, creams, cocktails, and the energetic, skimpy outfitted cookies. Cookies was just another term they used for the chiseled, model-like servers. They were a mixture of humans and droids, but each had been chosen to work there due to their almost unnatural perfection. For somewhere that sounded hectic, it had a laid-back atmosphere. Maybe this was because everyone was hypnotized by the Beresque shows. Blake had a couple of drinks and enjoyed the chatter amongst the group. Who would you like to get to know? Go home. Hurry. Lee. Chris. Orlo. Max. Settings. Back. Hurry. Go home. Who would you like to get to know? Go home. Finally back home. Blake trudged in, now tired and a bit peckish. He rubbed his stomach and sat down on the couch. Blake, e-screen on. The e-screen came to life. He'd set the news stream to come on as default. It usually filled the silence whilst he looked for something to watch. Reporter, Kill VR, the controversial killer who hunts down dangerous convicts and records the murders through their bionic eyes, is the focal point in the upcoming documentary, Kill VR, In the Eyes of a Killer. Reporter, promising never-before-seen, ultra-shocking VR footage, including their very first kill. From Kilver's own eyes. The one that started it all. Settings. Blake checked his phone idly. One new voicemail. Since when did anyone use voicemail? One new voicemail, select to unlock. Settings. Jonathan, good evening, Blake. How about going for that lunch I mentioned, tomorrow at Saucy Mama's? I'll have my car come and pick you up at noon. Settings. Jonathan, Blake, what lunch was he talking about? Settings. Blake, their meeting came flashing back. He'd zoned out from the conversation due to a headache. Why on earth would Jonathan want to hang out with him outside of work hours? He hated himself a little for missing something so important. The light from the e-screen glared at Blake, the news channel illuminated the room as it flashed from one scene to the next. As usual, he had nodded off with the e-screen chanting in the background. The thick, dark curtains were drawn, blocking out any ounce of light that would have allowed one to speculate the time of day. But that's the way he preferred it. The time blinked in blue light from the side of his bed. 11:11 a.m. Overslept again. Gone were the days when he used to spring out of bed at 8 a.m., or even earlier. The sound from the e-screen was muffled. Rummaging around, he retrieved the remote from underneath him and instantly reaped the rewards of comfort. Level 3 on the sound, it was too quiet to hear, he must have fallen asleep on it. Turning up the volume, he could now hear the newsreader breathlessly reporting on a story of a theft at the Owl Sanctuary just hours ago. Reporter, police believe that the Parliament of Owls was stolen in the middle of the night between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., however, no witnesses have come forward as of yet. If anyone has any information on this, please contact the local number for Newstone Police Department quoting reference, 282820. Who would commit such a horrible, heartless act? Blake checked himself, he thought that not only was she reporting the news but offering her own opinion on it. He missed the days when news consisted of facts rather than including speculation and emotion. He conceded that he had to agree with her on this occasion, who would commit such a heinous crime? Gathering his senses, movement from above caught his eye. Something was in the shadows all around him. 14 spherical objects were reflecting the images from the news. The objects disappeared and reappeared at different intervals. The hooting noise on the e-screen made him jump. Blake, wait, no. That wasn't on the e-screen. Seven owls can be seen in Blake's bedroom. Blake, how the fuck did they get here? Was someone pulling a prank? He quickly checked the flat to make sure there were no uninvited guests, apart from the owls. What was he going to do? How could he make this right? It was his phone. Jonathan's car was here to pick him up. Blake, oh fuck. Blake, fuck, fuck, fuck. Blake, fuck. He rushed around getting ready. The owl problem would have to wait a little longer. Jonathan was already sitting at a table waiting for Blake. Jonathan, thank you for joining me on your day off. Blake smiled and sat down. Jonathan, I invited you because we have something important to discuss. Jonathan, something I should have made you aware of earlier. I just hadn't found the right time. Settings. Jonathan, something I should have made you aware of earlier. I just hadn't found the right time. Jonathan exuded a film noir aesthetic, but of course, no one but him even knew what that was. For the man who was the face of the future, he loved to live in the past. The server appeared and Jonathan bided his time. Jonathan, put our order on my tab, it's Mr. Gourdain. Setting. Jonathan, I'll have a bottle of Bluebeard. Blake, make that too. Blake thought about the owl problem back at home and now he felt stuck whilst the situation was getting worse. Cookie, 2 Bluebeards coming up. The server prodded her tablet before sauntering off. Jonathan looked curious. Like he was scrutinizing a puzzle for its solution. Jonathan, what is it? You're troubled, might I be able to help you? Blake shot a furtive glance around the restaurant. Satisfied that there were no eavesdroppers present, he continued in a lowered voice. I got drunk and think I stole some owls. Someone broke into my flat. Settings. Someone broke into my flat. Blake, someone broke into my flat last night. Jonathan, oh my. What happened? Did they take anything? With such a baffling addition to the flat, Blake hadn't thought to check if anything had also gone missing. Blake, no, but... Cookie, boop. Here's your drinks. Blake knocked back a large swig of Bluebeard and weighed up his options. He was in two minds but he had no choice, he had to tell Jonathan. Tell Jonathan about the owls. Settings. Tell Blake, okay, I admit this is going to sound absolutely crazy, and you probably won't believe me, and I'm probably going to lose my job here but, there are owls in my flat. Blake, stolen owls. That I didn't put there. Please don't fire me. Jonathan seemed cool and collected. Jonathan, are you saying someone stole some owls and placed them in your flat in the middle of the night whilst you were sleeping? Blake, somehow. I have no idea how, but yes. Jonathan leaned back in thought and took a deep inhalation. This reminded him of his smoking e-pipe. He enjoyed ancient relics from an era that had been lost to the affliction of time. Out of his collection, he especially admired an antiquated pipe he had acquired from a stall in the opposite side of the city and had his e-pipe specially redesigned to replicate the antique one. Blake, all I know is this morning I woke up to the news channel showing a story about some stolen owls. Blake, moments later I find those missing owls staring down at me from my curtain rail, my shelves, my bed frame, everywhere. Pretty much on top of whatever they could perch on in my room. Blake, I definitely didn't put them there, I know that for certain, and I have no idea who did it, or how they broke into my flat or how they could even get them there without me noticing. Blake's phone beeped. Settings. One new message, select to unlock. Settings. One new message from, blank. The owl and the wood mouse ran away in an elegant pumpkin carriage. They journeyed wide and far under the stars. Oh, what a beautiful marriage. Blake, someone is having a joke. Jonathan, what is it? He read the text aloud. Jonathan, the owl and the wood mouse? Blake, what's that? Jonathan, it's an old poem about two unlikely species, the owl and the wood mouse, hunter and prey, who want to be together but it's not seen as acceptable in the forest so they run away to live together in harmony. Jonathan, it's a love story. Jonathan rubbed his gray stubble. Jonathan, And now this becomes also very interesting. Jonathan, you have a message from the culprit, so I think it's safe for us to deduce that this wasn't the act of a drunken you. Jonathan, possibly a harmless, albeit, reckless prank? An overzealous admirer? A jilted ex-lover, perhaps? Blake, I doubt it would be my ex, Stacy, she wouldn't do something like this and she lives in a different city now anyway. Jonathan looked inspired, eyes lit up with wonder and determination. He'd gone into full detective mode. Jonathan, I am intrigued to see where this will lead us. Blake, Blake, us. Jonathan, yes. You need to analyze the crime scene for clues, and if it's not too much bother, I'd be elated to join you in this exciting endeavor. Before Blake could interject, Jonathan continued. Jonathan, let's head to your apartment and see if we can find any clues. We need to ensure the owls are in good health and then we'll have them returned home safely. They headed outside, into the bitter cold. Jonathan took a breath of e-pipe. He blew out a mixture of Earl Grey scented smoke and cold air, which formed a cloud that enveloped him. Why Jonathan had wanted to meet at Saucy Mama's in the first place was still a question at the back of Blake's mind, but it would have to stay there for now. Blake, I swear my keycard was in here, I'll have to use my phone pass instead. Search for clues. Keycard. Beer bottle. Tablet pen. Settings. Keycard, search for clues. Keycard. Blake, there's my keycard. Blake, that's a strange place for it to be. I always keep it in my wallet. Blake took out his wallet and inspected it. Blake. Settings. Blake, Blake, someone has ripped a hole in the bottom of the card holder. Jonathan, does anyone have access to your keycard, apart from you? Blake, not normally, but I dropped it in the meeting room the other day. Chris found it and returned it to me. Blake, it's never happened before. Jonathan, interesting. Jonathan, have you left your wallet anywhere unattended recently? Blake, not that I recall. Jonathan, why would someone cut a hole in your wallet to get the keycard instead of just taking it? To get access to the keycard without looking suspicious. To make someone else look suspicious. No idea. Settings, no idea. Jonathan, most likely someone wanted your keycard to drop so someone else would pick it up and alert you to the fact it wasn't secure. Jonathan, someone may have had access to your apartment since before Friday. Blake, this all sounds a little complicated and far-fetched. Jonathan, it does, and all the more intriguing. Search for clues. Beer bottle. Blake, This is the beer I had before I went to bed. Nothing weird about that. Jonathan, on the contrary, Blake. Jonathan, you said you don't remember hearing anything all night, yes? Settings. Blake, correct. Jonathan, is there a chance someone could have tampered with your drink? Blake, that could explain why I slept in so late. Blake looked startled and horrified. Then gave the drink a sniff. Jonathan, you wouldn't necessarily smell or taste it, but let's move on for now. Blake, hold on a minute, you just said I might have been drugged. Jonathan, there is no way to test it in the right here and now. But we will get to that, we need to rule every possibility out. Search for clues. Tablet pen. Settings. Tablet pen. On the floor was a tablet pen. Blake vaguely recognized it from somewhere and took a closer look. The tablet pen was a bright shade of pink with an aggressively chewed end. Blake didn't have a tendency to eat pens, it was an efficient way of getting unwanted germs. And he certainly wouldn't want to use one that someone else's mouth had been intimate with. Blake, yuck. Someone's chewed this pen. Jonathan, this might be a clue to who was last in possession of this pen. The word macaques was in big turquoise letters down the side. Jonathan, macaques. Let's check what's it. Jonathan opened the What's It app and took a picture of the lettering. Jonathan, first match here is an Imagination account belonging to our very own Max. Jonathan, it showcases some of her hacking knowledge but it's mainly screenshots of her gaming on her Nudge stream. Jonathan, it's things like this that will eternally baffle me. Jonathan, call me an old fuddy-duddy but when everyone is busy streaming what they are doing, who's left to watch? Blake had no idea what fuddy-duddy meant and noticed Jonathan had a tendency to use a large number of outdated words. Jonathan, however, that is beside the point. How did it get here in your apartment? Blake, I honestly don't know. There was a piece of material stuck to the nib of the pen. Blake, there's a small piece of silk material on the end here. Jonathan, this is all very intriguing. Blake, it looks like the material from the nib of the pen is from my wallet. Jonathan, settings, back, Blake, it looks like the material from the nib of the pen is from my wallet. So someone used the pen to rip a hole in it. Settings, Blake. Jonathan, whoever had access to the pen and your wallet is our prime suspect right now. Blake, what does this all mean? Jonathan, I don't know, but something isn't right. Jonathan, I believe there's more to this than we initially thought. Blake, so you suspect foul play? Jonathan, precisely. The next thing we can do to advance our investigation is to check this building's CCTV. Jonathan, but first, let's get these owls back home. Jonathan took out a familiar-looking device. Blake, you have an HG device with you? Jonathan, oh, yes. This isn't a prototype version though. Jonathan started to message someone and Blake thought back to the owl and the wood mouse text he'd received. The message had no sender. Jonathan, Claude should be here soon to come and pick up the owls. Blake, who's Claude? Jonathan, he's a friend that works at the NSPD. Blake, wait, what? You informed a police officer? Jonathan, detective. And this detective will help me? Are you sure we can trust him? What were you thinking? Settings. What, are you sure we can trust him? Blake, are you sure we can trust him? Jonathan, yes, he's a friend and we can trust him. Jonathan, he's my personal contact in case of emergencies. Blake, so, you're saying you can just do what you want and he'll say you are an anonymous tipper? Jonathan, well, I can't do anything I want, that wouldn't be responsible. But he's always there to assist if I need a favor. Jonathan's voice softened a little. Jonathan, in the meantime, whilst we wait, we should sit down and talk. I still have something very pressing I need to discuss and here is probably the best place to do that. Blake was intrigued and half expected Jonathan to swipe his hand across the air to magically reveal his pressing agenda. Blake, go on. Jonathan, firstly, I want to say that although the circumstances here with your owl situation are a little odd, to say the least, I am enjoying spending some time helping you. Jonathan was searching for the right words to continue. Jonathan, I'd like to direct this conversation to your past, more importantly, that you had a change in guardianship at a young age. It seemed an odd direction for the conversation, but it took a lot to faze him. Blake, you mean when I was adopted? Jonathan, yes, you see, the thing is Blake, there's no easy way for me to say this but... Jonathan looked down at the ground momentarily. Jonathan, I am your biological father. Blake, really? A deafening silence swept across the room as they both let the information sink in. Blake was clearly confused. It was a reaction that Jonathan had anticipated. They simmered in the moment. Jonathan patiently waited while deep in thought about how to continue the conversation. Happy, really? This is amazing. Why didn't you tell me? Angry, how could you hire me and not say anything? Settings. Why didn't you tell me? Blake, why are you telling me about this now? Jonathan, I know you must be feeling thunderstruck by this news, I can understand that. But here, take this. It contains all the documents in it. They're yours now. It has all the information you need. As much as he would have preferred to be handing over a brown envelope with string and washer, the mini flash drive would have to do. The small object was encompassed in the palm of his hand. Jonathan's expression started to soften as he handed it over. Blake studied the back of Jonathan's wrinkled hand as he held it out. The snaking veins reminded him of a valley of winding rivers. Jonathan began an attempt to explain more but was interrupted by the doorbell. Jonathan, we'll discuss this later. I promise. Blake opened the door and in walked Claude. He nodded at Blake, his eyes scanned the room, then his attention quickly went to Jonathan. Claude, what shut, so where's the mess then? Jonathan, thank you so much for coming, Claude. Jonathan, Blake, do you mind if I take him to see the owls? Jonathan pointed to ask which way Blake's bedroom was. Blake, sure, go ahead. It's just down there on the right. Once they left the room, Blake sat back and thought about what Jonathan had just told him and toyed with the flash drive between his fingers. He grabbed his computer and slotted the flash drive in. Scrutinizing the documents, there was a birth certificate, same birthday as the one he celebrated, adoption documents, and a family picture. A smiling, 6-year-old Blake, his mum and a proud-looking 30-something-year-old Jonathan. Blake had vague memories of his parents but it was mostly a blur. Jonathan had felt familiar when they'd first met but thinking back, the man seemed different now to what he remembered. Time and success had most likely aged and shaped him into the person he'd become. And they had over 2 decades to catch up on. Blake, this all looks legit. Blake, Gourdain. Blake, wow. That's going to take some getting used to. Blake, but why don't I remember this clearly? Claude, right, I'm going to need to transport the owls somewhere secure and release them into an area where they can't escape. Claude, then I can call it in as an anonymous tip-off. That way no evidence will be found. Jonathan, you can use the abandoned computer store. ICC, procured the building and the renovation isn't due to commence until next month. There's no CCTV and you can use the side street for discretion. There was a normal half-assed precipitation going on outside as Blake checked out the sliding balcony doors. He imagined it would work in their favor for keeping the streets quiet. They transferred the owls to the back of the police van concealed inside multiple cardboard boxes. It was an arduous task, done to ensure that none of the owls were harmed in the process. Jonathan, again, my utmost appreciation for your assistance with this, Claude. Please let me know when it's all done. Claude tipped his hat at Jonathan and gave another nod to Blake before leaving. Jonathan noticed the family picture on Blake's computer screen and smiled. Jonathan, I'm very fond of that picture. The smile faded and a glint of sadness showed in his eyes. Jonathan cleared his throat and knew that Blake would also need some time for the news to sink in. Jonathan, let's go back to the owl situation and how this could have happened. Jonathan, let's analyze the evidence we have. Is there anything prominent that sticks out here? It seemed a meticulous and investigative nature ran in their blood. Blake took a moment to choose his words carefully. Was there any evidence that could help the investigation? The sender's name was blank on the text. It was you, wasn't it? Settings. Blake, the sender's name on the text I got was blank, which means it was someone with access to the HG device. Jonathan, well, this is very strange, and news to me. I can imagine this may make me look like a suspect, however, I can assure you it wasn't me. Jonathan, for now, you will have to take my word for it. Jonathan, there's another way I may be able to help you shed some light on the culprit. Jonathan, I'll pick you up tomorrow and we'll check your apartment's security footage. Jonathan, try to get some rest. Blake had a moment to take in his surroundings and let out a big breath. Blake, phew. He decided to go survey the damage in the bedroom. Feathers were everywhere. And bird shit, just like he had predicted. He clicked on the news channel and started to scrub. It was more difficult to clean than anticipated. Nothing on the news about the owls yet, but it was too soon. He'd have to bag up these feathers tight, or maybe make a pillow out of them. Room cleaned. He could finally rest. The screen is black. Open eyes. Step backwards. Step forwards. Settings. Step forwards. Blake could feel himself falling. Blake fell to the ground. Thump. Blake woke up. The next morning felt nice and calm in Blake's apartment, just how he liked it. Settings. The next morning, a new day, no concerns. Reporter, if anyone has information on Sam Stevens' whereabouts, we urge you to come forward and please contact the Hive team. The news finally switched to what he had been waiting for. Reporter, and some good news today. At 8 a.m. this morning, all 7 of the missing owls were delivered back to New Stone Owl Sanctuary, after a detective located them at a local closed-down store. Reporter, although there is no evidence to suggest who committed this crime, we can confirm that no harm came to the owls and they are very happy to be home. Blake, some good news for once. The clip of the reporter outside the building cut to a montage of cute owls accompanied by a silky-voiced male narrator telling his audience which owls are close buddies and how they like to spend their spare time. The report finished up with the request for donations. It was clear the Owl Sanctuary was making the most of this opportunity to promote. Blake's phone rang. Settings. Resume playing. Main menu. Option selected. Load. Option selected. Save. Resume playing. Main menu. Options. Load. Save selected. About. Controls. Quit. Previous file page. File page auto. File page quick. File page 1 selected. File page 2. File page 3. Next file page. Save slot 1. Empty slot. Save slot 1. Tuesday, September 12, 2023, 15:30 selected. Save slot 2. Save. Are you sure you want to overwrite your save? Save slot 1. Are you sure you want to overwrite your save slot 1? Yes. Resume playing. Main menu. Options. Load. Saves. About. Controls. Quit. Previous file. Quit. Are you sure you want to quit? Yes.
Streamlabs desktop document button and stream. Clickable. Clickable. Live 10911. Clickable. Streamlabs desktop. Click the visual novel. Sleep mode on.
Self-voicing disabled. Start. Menu. Quit. Quit. Menu. Start. Start. Menu. Start. Main menu. Option selected. Load. Start. Main menu. Option. Load selected. About. Control. Quit. Previous file page. File page. File page 1. File page 3. Next file. Load slot 1. Tuesday, September. Blake's phone rang. Settings. Incoming call, select to unlock. Settings. Incoming call, select to unlock. Jonathan, hey Blake. Get down here, pronto. We've got some investigating to do. Blake, where are we going? Jonathan, you'll see. Jonathan was driving manually and concentrating on what he was doing. Blake didn't understand why Jonathan didn't just use autopilot, but chalked it up to being another of his anachronistic eccentricities. Blake made a bet with himself that Jonathan probably still drank water from the tap too. They traveled outside of the business district, to the east part of New Stone. Around here they called it Newston. Large, opulent houses, lavishly decorated and possessing the newest of technical gadgetry. Gardens exhibited the finest topiary and exotic plants. This part of town was heavily surveilled by private security firms and personal bodyguards. Only the top businessmen, the richest celebrities, and high rollers lived here. Jonathan had an assault course of security systems to override to gain access to his house. The spacious living room was white and black with a minimalistic style. Exceptionally tidy due to the hired cleaner who visited every couple of days. An open-plan kitchen joined at the far back of the room. Gray, silver, black, white, and no colors to be seen anywhere. Only one room in the house possessed a slightly wider color palette, and that was Jonathan's work-at-home office. The circular archaic bookcase, the odd contraptions in a cabinet of wonders, and some sort of leafless tree-type sculpture thing lurked in the corner of the room. It was just how Blake had imagined. Jonathan, it's just in here. Blake, you have books? They stopped at the bookcase. Blake chuckled and scanned the titles. They didn't look neat. Every book was a different height and width, and each one had a different colored sleeve. Jonathan, this is a concept I learned from a forgotten era. Jonathan couldn't help but let slip a smirk. He clutched a book by its spine and tilted it towards him. The book released a faintly audible click. Jonathan gave Blake a wink as the bookshelf moved to the side, revealing a hidden door. Down in the clandestine room he housed two computers and other technical instruments that Blake had never seen before. Jonathan, take a seat. The two machines were on standby mode, so there was no waiting around for them to load up. Blake, what is this place? Where did you get all of these things from? Jonathan, this is where I keep my inventions, prototypes, and backup equipment. I always thought it would be useful to hold on to some items as they could be put to good use. Jonathan, first things first. Jonathan poured some of the liquid from the beer bottle into a container and then clicked it into a machine. Then was busy tapping away on his phone. Jonathan, this little invention can tell you information about ingredients and the breakdown of nutrients, as well as red calories. It also works with materials. Jonathan, the reader says this liquid contains hypnoral, no wonder you didn't hear anything. Blake, someone drugged me. But how? Jonathan, I don't want to alarm you, but I would guess that you have a beer most Fridays, so they were counting on an observed habit. Blake, observed. Jonathan, it is a possibility. Jonathan, let's check the security cam for your apartment. Hopefully, we'll be able to see who was there. It might shed some light on everything. Jonathan, if I've calculated this correctly, this one should be the camera I spotted on the wall opposite your door. Jonathan, here we are. Settings. Jonathan. Settings. Blake, it's locked. Jonathan, nothing I can't handle. Jonathan smirked and opened a drawer underneath the desk. He took out a small, handheld, rectangular machine which had no definable markings on it. Jonathan, I call her, Maxine. He connected the device to the laptop, clicked a few buttons and the device started to make a whirring noise. Beep. The security camera footage unlocked. Blake, this is why you need to get out more. Jonathan, but then where would you be without this old man's kooky devices? Jonathan, now we just need to choose the date. 23rd of March, wasn't it? Blake, yeah, that's the one. They watched the footage and both began to look concerned. Blake, nothing. How could there be no movement at all evening? Jonathan checked the recording from previous days leading up to the owl theft and still nothing. Jonathan, it looks like someone has tampered with the footage somehow. This isn't the original. Blake, can we get the original? Jonathan, it depends, but either way, it's beyond my capabilities. We'd need help. Jonathan, we know that Max is a hacker, she may be able to assist. Lee is another whose knowledge goes way beyond my own. Jonathan, someone has gone to a lot of settings, back. Jonathan, we know that Max is a hacker, she may be able to assist. Lee is another whose knowledge goes way beyond my own. They could be an option should you wish to delve deeper. Back. Settings. Jonathan, back. Jonathan, someone has gone to a lot of trouble to cover up who they are. For now, I don't think we are going to find the answer. Jonathan, try your best not to worry, go and get some rest, maybe give it a few days and then we can ask Max or Lee if they can help us. He gave Blake a reassuring squeeze of the shoulder. Word had already spread around the office that Blake could be Jonathan's long-lost son. No one had the stones to ask Blake about the gossip, they were all treading lightly around the subject. But Blake sensed the chatter. The owl incident and the poem felt like a strange and distant memory. Looking up from his daydream, Blake noticed Chris was standing by him. Just staring. How long had he been there? How did he not feel the quiver of the building's structure as Chris galumphed over? Blake felt a shudder down his spine. How's it going? BAHH. Why are you staring at me? Settings. How's it going, Blake? How's it going? Chris, I have some analytics for you to run through when you get a moment. Mr. Gourdain said he is keen to get the ball rolling. Chris handed over the copy with care as if it were made of thin glass. More paper. The paper was as crinkled as the crumpled veins of laziness on Chris's shirt, Blake considered derisively. Blake, thanks. Chris, Mr. Gourdain, well the other Mr. Gourdain. Wait, no. Not that I mean there's two. Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Chris, people said that Jonathan is your. Chris stopped rambling, he looked worried and panicked as he realized he'd slipped up. The secret was out. Confide in him. Brush it off. Settings. Confide in him. Blake, it's fine, don't worry. It's not inaccurate, but please just deny any knowledge if anyone asks you. Chris looked genuinely pleased and grateful. Chris, I won't say anything to anyone. I promise. Chris, Jonathan also suggested you and I get together outside of work to go through our project. So, do you mind if I come over to yours? Blake, Air. Chris, great. I can bring Marv my dog with me too. Great. I don't like dogs. Settings. Great. Blake, sounds great to me. Chris, tonight it is. Blake, oh. Air, okay then. Blake pulled a perplexed face as Chris's mountainous frame hobbled off and he wondered whether Chris had always been a Hulk or just really into weightlifting. How many hours a day would you have to lift weights to achieve that? Max, I can't wait for Ultra Salt. I'm going to win a medal this year, I can feel it. Can you just imagine how amazing that would be? Orlo, you're going to be eating my dust at the Red Dragon course, just like last year. Max, I won't. Because you're a lizard butt. Orlo, come on then, out with the punchline. Max, you'll be the one who's dragging behind. Orlo, no. Just, no. Max, are you planning on taking part this year, Blake? Blake, I always have the best intentions to. I enjoy the events and everything in Ultra Salt Month but tend to lose track of what's going on. Blake, I don't think my character has ever been higher than level 10. I prefer watching the live finals rather than taking part. Max, you could always come to some classes with me and Orlo. Orlo had already zoned out and gone back to his work at this point. No reaction or look upwards at the sound of his name. Lee however looked to be listening intently as though he wanted to say something. Blake, as in, they have dedicated workout classes for this game? Max, yeah, it's nice. Everyone gets together to increase their levels and it gives it a proper community vibe rather than seeing each other just as opponents. Max, how about you, Lee, do you play? Lee, me. Lee, oh, yeah, I will be playing this year, I came fourth 2 years ago. Max, no way. Max, seriously. Lee nodded shyly. Then he tapped his touchboard and brought up an image of him with his medal. Max, that's totally Ven. Orlo peered up from behind his computer screen. Orlo, not a real word. Max, I'm talking to an Ultra Salt finalist. Max took the touchboard for a closer look and shrieked in delight. The loud noise brought Orlo back into the conversation. Orlo, pretty cool. Lee, thanks, guys. Max, how did you manage it? I mean, I bet you trained every day, right? Lee, yeah, of course. I'm more long distance and speed training, so I went to Ultra Salt bonus running groups. Lee, I leveled up my character's speed and agility enough to be in the live finals for the desert course within 12 days. Max, so mega. Lee, I made sure I practiced on the game's demo courses so I knew what kind of obstacles my character would face. Lee, it was good fun. Orlo, I see you have the Ultra X1 training watch. Max, just Suven. Orlo, still not a real word. Lee, yeah, I know Ultra Salt Month is a few weeks away but I wanted to get to grips with it before this year's competition. Lee, it gives you better updates on leveling your character and you can add in what exercise suits you and more accurate reminders for how much more exercise you need to do. Orlo, my Ultra V4 still does the trick for me. Max, don't hate the player. Conversation died down and everyone went back to their desks. Blake noticed a tablet pen left behind on his desk. A pink pen with a chewed end. Just like the one at his apartment. Blake, hey, anyone left their pen here? Orlo, that's mine. Max, ugh, how many times have I told you to stop chewing the ends of those, Orlo? You'll get a shock doing that. Orlo, I'll be fine. Blake, you got a minute? Jonathan, come in. Come in. One hand gestured for Blake to come into the room whilst the other was pushing paper to the side of his desk. One hand gestured for Blake to come into the room whilst the other was pushing paper to the side of his desk. He was happy to see Blake. Jonathan, how is everything going? Have you heard any further from our mystery owl thief? Blake, nothing so far. But Orlo left his pen on my desk, it's the same as the pen we found in my apartment. Jonathan, I see. We still need further proof before we can assume it was him. I think it's time we involve one of your colleagues in assisting us by hacking into the CCTV camera tonight. Jonathan, considering you know them much better than I do, and it would be rather less intimidating, it might be best you invite them. Jonathan, who would you like to invite? Max. Lee. Settings, back. Max. Jonathan, who would you like to invite? Jonathan, perfect. Let me know if Max agrees to help us. Jonathan, I've been meaning to ask. How have you been doing in general? All good. I'd rather not talk about it. I'm fine, but I could do with a pay rise. Settings. All good, Blake, all good. Thanks for asking. Jonathan, brilliant. That's what I want to hear. Blake, so, Jonathan and I want to check the CCTV at my apartment, and wondered if you might be able to help us at all. Max, depends on why you need to check the CCTV. Someone broke into my apartment. Lie, I need to check a mouse problem. Lie, I need to. Someone broke. Blake, I had a break-in at my apartment, Jonathan's helping me look into it. Max, oh man. In that case, of course I'll help you. Jonathan, so, how did it go? Blake, Max is happy to help us. Jonathan, great, my car will pick you both up around 2000 hours. Blake headed through the main lobby at the end of his working day. Andy, well, good afternoon, Blake. Andy had the most endearing smile and temperament. His nose and eyes crinkled as he flashed his hand in a welcoming gesture. Everyone thought Andy was an awesome guy. He knew all the staff members' names and little details about them, but every now and then he'd forget small things, such as, how's the doggo? What's the little fluke's name again? Ah yes, of course. And it made him seem more human. His creators had done a great job, as it was rare for a droid to be so highly regarded and liked by staff members. Blake, good day. Andy, oh yes, it's been a long one, but we're nearly there. An affable chuckle followed as Andy glanced at the time on the wall. His voice was confident, tone was pleasant, and they'd given him an accent that was from neither here nor there. Andy rested his elbows on the desk and leaned forwards in a hushed voice. Andy, I had something I wanted to ask you. Blake, what's up? Andy, if you don't mind me asking, Lee is on your floor, so you must see him sometimes, right? Blake, yeah, he sits near me. Andy, tell me, how's he getting on up there? He's doing great. He's getting more confident. He's quiet. Settings. He's getting more confident. He's doing great. He's getting more confident. He's quiet. Blake, he's quiet, but I'm sure with time he'll open up more. Andy, oh, that's a shame. Andy, thanks for the talk, Blake. The door buzzed. Blake wondered what on earth he was doing but lifted his phone to the door panel to let Chris into his apartment. He had a fleeting thought where he wondered if the dog would be abnormally large too. The sound of barking unleashed the moment the door opened. Chris had to hunch down to avoid hitting his head on the door frame. The dog came bounding into the room, his big jaw open in an excited smile, but luckily the dog was a normal size for a French bulldog. "Blake, come in, have a seat." Chris sat down on the sofa and made it look smaller than it was. He looked a little uncomfortable. Blake imagined everything was much bigger in his apartment, to accommodate. "Chris, this is Marv. He's very friendly." "Marv, stranger." "Blake, he can talk." Marv sniffed at Blake's leg. "Marv, stranger. Friendly." The dog stated this in a happy and hyperactive voice, and the collar flashed. "Chris, Bayo Vocaliza collars are a new technology. The device detects brainwaves and vocalizes Marv's needs when they are thought and helps me to understand him as a being." "Blake, I see." "Chris, you can also play a game with him, and if you do he'll let you pet him as a reward." "Marv, play." "Do you want to play a game with Marv?" "Yes." "Blake, okay, sounds like fun." "Chris, you have to take it in turns to choose a number, and whoever reaches 33 wins." "Chris, you can only choose a number that's 1 to 4 numbers higher than the last number that was chosen." "Chris, so if Marv started first and chose 1, you could only choose 2, 3, 4, or 5. "Marv, let's do this. Reach 33. Settings. Marv, who goes first at choosing a number?" "Me." "Marv. Settings. Marv. Me. Who goes first at me? Marv. Marv goes first and chooses between 1 to 4. "Marv, I choose 3. Settings. Marv, I choose 3. Marv chose 3, get to 33 first to win. Choose a number. 4, 5, 6, 7, setting, back. 7. Blake, 7. Marv, I choose 8. Settings. Marv, I choose 8. Marv chose 8, get to 33 first to win. Choose 9, 10, 11, 12, setting, back, 12. Blake, 12. Marv, I choose 13. Marv chose 13, get to 14, 15, 16, 17, settings. 17. Set 17. $16. 15. 14. Marv chose 13, 14. Blake, 14. Marv, I choose 18. Marv chose 18, get to 33 first to win. 9, 20. 21. 22, settings, 22. Blake, 22. Marv, I choose 23. Marv chose 23, get to 30, 20, 25, 20, 27. Blake, 27. Marv, I choose 28. Marv chose 28, get to 33 first to 20, 30, 31, 32. 31. Blake, 31. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, do you want to play again? Yes. Blake, okay, I'll try again. Settings. Blake, Marv, you go first. Get to 33 first, 1. Settings. 4. Blake, 4. Marv, I choose 8. Marv chose 8. 10, 12. Settings. 12. Blake, 12. Marv, I choose 13. Marv chose 16. 7. Settings. 17. Blake, 17. Marv, I choose 18. Marv, 20. Settings. 22. Blake, 22. Marv, I choose 23. Marv, 26. 20. Settings. 27. Blake, 27. Marv, I choose 28. Marv, 20. 30. 32. Settings. 32. Blake, 32. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, do you want to play again? Yes. Blake, okay, I'll try again. Marv, you go first. Get to 33, 1, 2, 3. Blake, 3. Marv, I choose 7. Settings. Marv, I choose 7. Marv chose 7, get to 33, 8, 9, 10, 11, settings. 11. Blake, 11. Marv, I choose 13. Marv chose 13. 17, settings. 7, Blake, 17. Marv, I choose 18. Marv chose 22. 21. Blake, 21. Marv, I choose 23. Marv chose 20. 27. Settings. 20. 25. Blake, 25. Marv, I choose 28. Marv chose 20. 30. 32. Settings. 31. 30. Blake, 30. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, yes. Blake, okay, Marv, you go first. Get to 1, 2, 3. Four. 3, 2. Blake, 2. Marv, I choose 3. Marv, 6. Settings, back, 7. Five. Blake, 5. Marv, I choose 8. Marv chose 9, 10, 11, 12. 10. Blake, 10. Marv, I choose 13. Marv, 17. Blake, 17. Marv, settings. Marv, I choose 18. Marv chose 8, 20, 21. Blake, 21. Marv, set back. Marv, I choose 23. Marv chose 25. 20, Blake, 24. Marv, I choose 28. Marv chose 29. Blake, 29. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, yes. Blake, okay, I'll try again. Settings. Blake, Marv, you go first. Get to 1. Blake, 1. Marv, I choose 3. Marv, 4. Blake, 4. Marv, I choose 8. Marv, 9. Ten. Blake, 10. Marv, I choose 13. Marv chose 13, 14, 15. 14. Blake, 14. Marv, I choose 18. Marv chose 19. Blake, 19. Marv, I choose 23. Marv chose 24. Blake, 24. Marv, I choose 28. Marv, 29, 30, 31, 32, settings. 30, 29. Blake, 29. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, yes. Blake, okay, I'll try again. Marv, you go first. Settings. Marv, get to 1. 2, 3. 2, 1. Two. Blake, 2. Marv, I choose 3. Marv chose 4. Marv chose 3, 4, 5. Blake, 5. Marv, I choose 8. Marv chose 9. 10, 11. Blake, 11. Marv, I choose 13. Marv chose 14, 15, 16. 15. Blake, 15. Marv, I choose 18. Marv, 9, 20. Blake, 20. Marv, I choose 23. Marv chose 20, 25, 26, 27. Settings. 20, 20, 24, 20. Blake, 25. Marv, I choose 28. Marv, 20, 32. 29. Marv chose 20, 29. Blake, 29. Marv, I choose 33. Marv wins. Marv, yes, no. Settings, no. Blake, no thanks. Chris, no worries, good try. Blake, I didn't take you as the type to have a pet. Chris, I like the idea of caring and loving for a more dependent species as if it were part of your own family. Marv, poop. Blake nearly spat his tea out. Blake, what was that? Chris, oh, sorry, it's the Bayo. I should take Marv out to relieve himself before it starts to rain, he doesn't like the rain. After Marv was sorted, Blake and Chris worked on their project for a couple of hours. It was Jonathan's car to pick him up, he'd nearly forgotten. Settings, Blake, oh Chris, I'm sorry but I have to get going now. Let's continue this tomorrow at work. Chris, no problem. I look forward to it. Chris left with Marv. Jonathan's car arrived on the dot to pick up Blake. And Max was already inside the vehicle looking bedazzled by everything. Max, wow, this place is something else. Jonathan showed off his bookcase trick and Max was awestruck. Max, look at all these doohickeys. Jonathan, good word. I'll save that one for later. Jonathan took out a little jot pad and pencil from his pocket and scribbled the word down. Max and Blake looked at each other. Jonathan, Max, I understand that this is a rather unwanted request bringing you here, but would you kindly not mention anything about this clandestine endeavor to any other person please? Settings. Max, back. Jonathan, Max, I understand that this is a rather unwanted request bringing you here, but would you kindly not mention anything about this clandestine endeavor to any other person please? Max, of course Mr. Gourdane, I won't tell a soul. Jonathan, here is my computer for you to work your magic on. Jonathan, one moment whilst I grant you access to the system. Jonathan flipped through the jot pad again, then entered the password into his computer. Max, wow, that's one Ben computer. Good thing it isn't old like your other whatchamacallits, otherwise, this would have been a challenging task. Max interlocked her fingers and flexed her hands backwards to make them click. Max, let's do this. Max got to work on the computer. Max. Settings, Max. Max, I've never seen anything like this before. Looks like someone has encrypted the data to make it harder to hack. I'm going to need some help with this. Max, Blake, can you take a look and see if you can override the security add-on? Sure, I'll give it a go. Jonathan would be better at helping you. Settings. Sure, I'll give it a go. Jonathan would. Sure, Blake, I'll give it a shot. Security camera for apartment 28, block 6, Dent Street, New Stone. Max, it looks like binary code. Blake, can you search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers so we can find out the code to unlock this? No problem. I can't do that. Max, it looks like binary code. No problem. Max, it looks like binary code. Blake, can you? No problem. Binary consists of 8 numbers per character. I will give you 8 numbers, then when you have translated it into a letter or number, click to continue for the next character in the code. You can press back if you miss a number. There are 7 characters total for the code to unlock the security camera. When you're ready, click to continue for the first 8 numbers. Settings. When you're ready, 00110011 is the first character of the code. Settings. 00110011 is the first character of the code. Settings. 0000110010 is the second character of the code. Back. 00110011 is the first character of the code. 00110010 is the second character of the code. Back. 00110011 is the first character of the code.
Dash with window R with level 1 WinRAR WordPad. Belch WordPad Windows. 00110011. Carriage return 1. Carriage return. Blank. Click.
00110010 is the second character. Skip. 00110010 is the second character of the
Belch
code.
WordPad window. 00110010. Carriage return. Blank. Click.
00110001 is the third character of the code. Back. 00110001 is the third character of the code.
Belch word. 00110001. Carriage return. Blank. Click.
01010010 is the fourth character of the code.
Belch WordPad Windows engine. 01010010. Blank.
01010001 is the fifth character of the code. Back. 01000001 is the fifth character of the code.
Belch WordPad Windows engine. 01001001. Carriage return. 01 is blank. Click.
Back. 0101000001 is the fifth character of the code. Back. 0101000001 is the fifth character of the code. 01000111 is the sixth character of the code. Back. 01000011 is the sixth. 01000011 is the sixth character of the code. Back. 01000001 is the fifth character of the code.
Belch 01000001. 1. 0 0 0 0 1. Carriage return. 1 0 1. 01000001. Blank. Blank. Click.
Setting. 01000001 is the fifth character of the 01000011 is the sixth character of the code. Setting. 01000011 is the sixth character of the code. 01000011 is the sixth character of the code.
Belch. 01000011. Blank. Click.
00110010 is the seventh character. 00110010 is the seventh character of the code.
Click.
Settings. 00110010 is the seventh character of the code. Set. 00110010 is the seventh character of the code. Setting. 00110010 is the seventh character of the code.
0100011010. Click.
Setting. 00110010 is the seventh character of the code. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers. Settings. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers. Settings. Input the answer. Back. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers. Settings. Back. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers. Setting. Back. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers.
Belch, word pass 01000000010001100. 0.
Max, this doesn't look right. Do you want to try again? Yes. Security camera for apartment 28, block 6, Dent Street, New Stone. Max, it looks like binary code. Blake, can you search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers so we can find out the code to unlock this? No problem. Binary consists of 8 numbers per character. I will give you 8 numbers, then when you have translated it into a letter or when you're ready, click to continue for 00110000000. Input the answer to the security camera code here and press enter. Search for a binary translator on your phone and put in the numbers. Max, looks like that needs to be in uppercase. No probs.
Belch, Belch, WordPad. WordPad dialog as Belch, WordPad with. Click.
Max, looks like that needs to be in uppercase. No probs. Max, great, we're in. Nice one. The footage unlocked and started to play. Jonathan, forward to the evening. All three were closely leaning towards the screen, eager to see what would appear. The footage showed Chris standing outside Blake's door just after 11 p.m. Blake, huh? Jonathan, this can't be. Chris took out his phone and stared down at it. The image went black. Max, what? Someone's wiped the rest of the footage. Both Blake and Jonathan were quiet. Max, Sue, was that everything you needed? Or? Jonathan, yes. Yes, sorry. This just isn't what we had expected to see. Thank Max for her help. Abrupt, remind Max not to tell anyone. Settings. Thank Blake, thank you for your help on this, we both really appreciate it. Jonathan, thank you again for your assistance here, you've done a fine job. Jonathan, Nick is out the front and will take you home safely now. Blake, wait, who's Nick? Jonathan, oh, sorry. That's the name of my car. Blake, you named your car? Jonathan, well, I've had him for a few years now and he's very reliable. I suppose I get attached to things that are around for a while. They said their goodbyes and Max left, leaving Blake and Jonathan. Jonathan, 321 tag 2, it's got to be a code for something. It's been put there on purpose. But a code for what? Jonathan, maybe a city code, no. A lock somewhere perhaps? Blake shrugged with no answer to give. Jonathan pointed up to the sky in a determined gesture. Jonathan, no matter. We will figure this out in time. Blake, so, what do we do about Chris? Jonathan, well, I can't say I am too happy with the results. We must tread carefully here. It greatly disappoints me so to find Chris has somehow been mixed up in this. Blake, I didn't expect it to be him. Jonathan, it isn't. Never settle for the first answer you receive. Jonathan, we cannot presume that the puzzle is complete when we don't know how many pieces there are. Jonathan, I must recall your HG devices and postpone the project until further notice whilst this is under our investigation. Jonathan, it is a painful irony that even once I possess Chris's HG device, we will not be able to check the activity due to the secure demeanor of the machinery. Jonathan, I think it would be best I talk to Chris about what we've just witnessed and find out what he was doing. Agree. Disagree. Settings. Agree. Blake, good idea. I'd like to see what he has to say about this. The day had dragged and felt longer than ever. Time to relax. News on. Shoes off. Couch. Non-drugged Bluebeard in hand, he hoped. The image shows the news switch off suddenly and a man can be seen on the E-screen. Settings. Adjusting himself slowly towards the screen, Blake felt a pang of horror slither through his veins. On the monitor was a man sitting at a desk, taking notes, and staring. No. Studying. Gibbered Blake's mind. In the top right-hand corner was a small image which mirrored Blake. He cautiously edged closer for a clearer view. Blake, what the? The man on the screen couldn't possibly be studying him. It must be part of the program or an error with the station. But this was unlike any show Blake had seen before, and why was his image in the corner? Was this stranger taking notes on him? Blake slowly waved his hand to one side and the corner image mirrored him. The man on the screen started to look worried and confused. It became paramount for Blake to capture what was happening. What if this was connected to what had been happening recently? Without evidence he would be incapable of proving it. Blake held up the phone from his trouser pocket and took a picture of the man on his e-screen. Immediately, the man staring back at him became panic-stricken and started desperately pressing buttons. When that failed he shouted for someone, however, no sound emanated from the speakers. Before Blake could get his phone to record the events, another man emerged from outside the periphery. Instant cut off and the scene went back to the news. Blake, what? Blake, what the fuck just happened here? The experience was more than enough to make even the sturdiest of people crumble into a paranoid, tin hat wearing conspiracist. Blake hurriedly switched the power off before unplugging every single electrical device he could find within the flat. Shirt buttoned, fly done up, sunglasses and headphones on. Blood-pumping music to start the day. There was nothing better. The sky was a fresh blue with no clouds in sight. This was a rare luxury in the city of New Stone. Blake walked around the outside of the park and it was a great day for it. To the right, a silver car was SAT waiting. The car plate 321 tag 2, he recognized it from somewhere. It was the code they had got from the CCTV camera. He had to know if they were connected. Blake peered into the car to catch a glimpse of the driver. Out of nowhere, he felt a needle-like sting penetrate the small of his back, in that awkward place where it's difficult to reach. Almost immediately he began to find it hard to breathe and a lightheaded dizziness took over. Someone was here watching him, they knew he was onto them and getting close to the truth. They must have drugged him with a needle or a dart. He scanned the area, lots of people on their morning commute, but none who looked suspicious. Fumbling for his phone to call Jonathan, he began to wheeze harder. He has to pick up. He couldn't tell if anyone could hear him, but he could make out a figure as they rapidly approached him. Blake, Jonathan, someone, poison. The darkness claimed him. Sterile white light brought Blake back as he awakened in the hospital. Jonathan helped Blake check out and assisted him into the car. He didn't look worried, in fact, he looked a little amused. Jonathan, how old are you? Blake, what? 31, I haven't lost my memory. Jonathan, yes, so in your 31 years on this planet, have you not once been stung by a bee? Rubbing his head, Blake seemed a little dazed, but not too bothered. Jonathan, you had an anaphylactic reaction. Luckily, it wasn't too severe. Jonathan, the hospital said a first aid officer at the park found you just as you passed out and administered an immunization vaccine. Jonathan, you'll be completely dandy from here on out. Blake, no wonder I'm buzzing, Jonathan, well, apart from the cheesy jokes, you seem back to normal. Starting to feel more with it, Blake remembered what he had been doing before the sting. Blake, the car. Blake, there was a silver car on my way to work. The plate was 321 tag 2. It can't have just been a coincidence. Jonathan, you're right, we knew it had to mean something. Blake, and I caught a glimpse of the driver. He looked pretty rough, big scar down one side of his face. Blake, we should wait in the same location and time tomorrow. Jonathan, I was about to suggest the same. In the interim, I will investigate the plate and brief you on my findings tomorrow. Jonathan, anyway, let's get you back home. Blake, no, I've got work to do. Jonathan, are you sure you're feeling up to it? Blake, yeah, I'm all good. Jonathan, all right then. On the drive to work, Blake caught Jonathan up on what had happened to his e-screen. Half an hour into his work, Blake heard a tap as something hit the back of his computer screen. He peered behind it. Orlo was peeping out from the side of his desk and his Mankey, chewed pen was on the ground by Blake's desk, reminding him of the madness that had been following him around lately. Orlo, is it true you were late because you were stung by a bee? He chose to ignore Orlo's question. Orlo. Settings. Orlo continued to stare at him until he couldn't take it anymore. Blake, why does it matter? Orlo, have you seriously never been immunized before? Max, oh, 3 questions in a row, you know what that means. Max, question match. Lee, what's a question match? Max, you know, when you have to keep asking questions. Whoever breaks the chain loses. Lee, sounds easy. Max, wanna bet? Let's go. Do you want to go first? Settings. Lee, it's okay, you go first. Orlo, oof, she got you there, buddy. Oldest trick in the book. Max, better luck next time, sweets. Lee, but I didn't know we'd started. Max gave a cheeky wink and Lee laughed a little. A hint of nervousness was there, but he did well to try and hide it. Lee hurriedly looked back down at his computer, hoping no one would notice his face going a light shade of red. Max, Blake, Orlo. Your turn. Max, rules, no one-word answers, no repeating, no statements posing as questions, i.e. I don't know. Max, judge, me, gets the final say. Max, go. Blake thought carefully about his choice of words. I am rubber, you are glue. Buzz off. Is nothing ever kept secret in this office? Settings. Is I am rubber, you are glue. Blake, I am rubber, you are glue. Orlo, at. Max, you lose. You might need some practice. Blake, fine, whatever. Blake, anyway, you could have taken my eye out with that germ-riddled pen of yours. Orlo, doesn't matter, you've got a spare one. Blake couldn't help let a smile escape the corner of his lip as he shook his head at the two jokesters. Blake checked his phone. Blake couldn't help let a smile escape the corner of his lip as he shook his head at the two jokesters. Max and Orlo chuckled and snorted, escalating each other's laughter until they were all laughed out. Blake checked his phone. Message from Evidencorp. Dear customer, please accept this email as a formal apology from Evidencorp regarding the tech issue on the 30th of March. We would like to clarify to our customers that a researcher calculating viewer figures inadvertently streamed a live feed. This launched a visual connection on all affected Tronic e-screens in the New Stone vicinity. We're offering a 10% discount on all Tronic products to those affected, as compensation. Settings. Back. The rest included small print which advised the puny offer was available for the next 10 days, not that Blake was remotely roped in by it. Now there was proof that this random event was unrelated to the real problems at hand. Max, isn't it strange how you can only get immunized when you're having a bad reaction to something? Orlo, it's just a shame there isn't an immunizer for all your bad jokes. Lee, oof. Macax, murked by Team Killer Orlo. Max, You don't have to be so histamine about it. Orlo, AHH, it hurts. At that moment Blake received a notification on his computer to return his HG device to Jonathan's office. He went to his locker and opened it. Blake, it's gone. Blake peered into the room from the side of the door to check if Jonathan was alone and not on a call. He saw Chris and Jonathan talking. Chris, I am so sorry Jonathan. I don't know where it is. Jonathan, you swear you have no idea, Cal. Who's Cal? Blake thought. Chris, my whole life is indebted to you, I have no reason to upset that balance. Jonathan, what about last week? What were you doing at my son's flat in the early hours of the morning? Chris, last week after the work drinks? I got a weird message from him asking if I can come and help him. When I got there he messaged me saying that he'd sorted it, whatever it was. Jonathan, I see. Blake stepped into the room, pulling the handle to purposely make noise and get their attention as he walked in. Jonathan, Blake, do you have the HG device? Blake, I don't. It's not in my locker. Jonathan, so that makes the both of you. Jonathan sighed and then smiled and nodded to Chris. Jonathan, Chris, that's all I wanted to ask you and I apologize if I seemed intrusive. Chris, it's not a problem. If there's anything I can do to help let me know. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan walked Chris to the office door, closing it once the gargantuan figure had left. Jonathan, it was only you and I who knew my intentions to remove the HG devices. Or so I thought. Jonathan, but to take both, this is rather troublesome indeed. This could mean we're possibly dealing with more than one person here. Jonathan, for now, finding some evidence of the perpetrator or perpetrators is most pertinent. I'm going to need Lee to help me with this, would you mind kindly retrieving Lee from the reception area for me? Blake, how do you know he's not at his desk? Jonathan chuckled. Jonathan, it's only a hunch, but a most likely one. I often find him down there talking to Andy at reception. I have no idea what they need to talk about, but if you find out I'd love to know. Andy was SAT at the front desk, unexpectedly alone.
Belch. WordPad dialog message click Larry Bell Josie Hayden button alt M. Document button end stream. Clickable, live 11756 clickable button end stream.
Blake, hey man, have you seen Lee around anywhere? I've got Jonathan looking for him. Andy, oh. No problem. He's just in my quarters, I'll go and get him. Blake raised a brow as Andy disappeared into the small room behind the desk. The door opened a few moments later and Lee came rushing out. Lee, hey. I hear Jonathan is asking for me. Blake looked at Lee curiously and then at the door. Blake, what's happening in there? Lee, oh. Yeah. I was just trying to help Andy with fixing his e-screen. Blake, if it's broken I'm sure Jonathan will get him a new one. Lee, no, it's okay. Lee scratched the back of his neck and looked uncomfortable. Ask him what's really going on. Let it go. Settings. Ask him, Blake, I don't buy it. What's really going on? Lee, okay, look, I was connecting my tablet to his e-screen so he could watch me stream on Nudge. Lee, Andy lives in that tiny room behind his desk when he's not working, and like us, he gets bored sometimes. Lee, he's not allowed the internet outside of work hours and even then it's mega restricted. Lee, I hacked my tablet so he could just access Nudge. Blake, I'd be more worried he might start a channel and get Nudge famous, then you'd be caught. Lee laughed. Lee, true. I hadn't thought of that. Lee, you're not going to say anything to Jonathan, are you? It's safe with me. Tell me why I shouldn't. Settings. It's safe with me, Lee. Thanks dude, I appreciate it. The next morning, Jonathan and Blake had an early morning stakeout. Jonathan, I've done a little digging into this car plate. Blake, really? Did you find anything? Jonathan took out the jot pad from his breast pocket and flipped a few pages. Jonathan, the car is registered to a. Jonathan, flip flip flip. Jonathan, Mr. Trout. And the registered address is in this town. Jonathan, however, I checked the address and the property belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Brown in a highly affluent part of Nustan. Admittedly, I could be wrong, but this looks more like a fake address. Jonathan, it seems that whoever sent you that email has coaxed you down a rather recondite rabbit hole. Blake took the reins and conducted a quick search through his phone. Blake, asterisk tap tap. Huff. Tap asterisk. Blake, your hunch looks spot on. Mrs. Brown has an ImageNation account. You can see numerous pictures of her husband's topiary art on here, but have a look at this one in particular. Blake showed Jonathan the image. IT showed Mr. and Mrs. Brown smiling in front of a large angel topiary. In the description it said, our little slice of heaven. Oz's biggest passion project at home. Hashtag top topiary, hashtag hedge art, hashtag garden angel. He scrolled down to another image which showed a gardening charity event Mr. Brown had recently organized and raised a bunch of bids for. Blake, Oz Brown isn't our guy. That's not the man I saw in the car, he's not in any of these pictures. Jonathan, you're getting the hang of this detective work very well. Playful, before you know it I'll be managing you. Serious, I need to know who's behind this. Annoyed, I'm not looking for your approval. Settings. Serious. Playful, Blake, before you know it I'll be managing you, old man. Blake's cheeky remark was softened by the admiring smile he presented. Blake, but in all seriousness. Blake, I can't help but feel like there's something we've overlooked. Jonathan, well, the truth cannot hide forever. Blake, so I guess this means this guy doesn't always take the same route, or maybe works alternating hours, or yesterday was just a complete coincidence. Blake, it might not be even been a car plate. Blake, sorry I dragged you out this morning. Jonathan, it's fine. It was great sitting in the car just watching the world go by, like a real stakeout. We'll both just have to be vigilant. Blake. Jonathan, is something on your mind? Blake, I didn't tell anyone, but it seems that some people in the office might know I'm your son. Jonathan, I suppose that was always likely to happen. Jonathan, I'm rather segregated from most of the office, but I imagine your colleagues knowing that I'm your father affects you. I'm kind of glad people know. I don't mind people knowing. I don't want people to know. Settings. I'm kind of glad people know. Blake, I'm kind of glad people know. It makes it a bit easier rather than having to do some sort of weird announcement. Jonathan, good, I'm kind of glad too, son. Jonathan radiated a warm smile at Blake. Blake's phone beeped. Settings. Blake checked his phone. One new message, select to unlock. Message from Blake. Meet me tomorrow outside the abandoned computer store at 6 p.m. alone. This message contains two attachments. Trout.jpg and Sam.jpg. He showed the message to Jonathan. Blake, this one says it's from me. Blake, and there are two images attached. Do you think we can safely open them somehow? Jonathan, let's take every precaution. Maxine would be best for this. He took out Maxine and plugged it directly into the charging port of Blake's phone and extracted the file. It took minutes for Jonathan to open the images that had been attached to the email. The first image. Settings. The first, a square-faced, thick-lipped, middle-aged man, who wore a scruffy-looking, dirty, brown jacket. He looked like a dodgy tech trader, who sold faulty 3D printers. Blake studied his face. Jonathan, I was expecting a picture of craniate, gill-bearing, freshwater fish. Blake, that's him. Blake, the guy I saw in the car, he doesn't look like good news, if you ask me. The second image. The man in the second attachment looked familiar, but Blake couldn't think where from. Taking out his phone, he started up the WhatsApp app, took a picture of the image from Jonathan's computer screen and waited for the app to load with results from the web. A news article came up with a face recognition match. It was Sam Stevens, the man who had been on the news as a missing person last week. He hadn't recognized him in the attachment, due to the stubble and bedraggled look, compared to the pictures shown in news reports. Nerves suddenly bolted down through Blake's body. The idea of someone trying to frame him for this, lit up in his mind. He seriously hoped that the owl incident was an unparalleled occurrence, and maybe, just maybe, this person wanted Blake to help them find Sam. Blake, do you think this ruffian, Trout, is the man who kidnapped Sam Stevens? He caught himself using one of Jonathan's weird words and cringed. Jonathan, there's a picture on the wall in both images, and they match. This Trout fellow is certainly involved somehow. Blake, what has all this got to do with me? I've never met either of these people before. Jonathan, yes, why tell you this information, and why now? Jonathan, it is with a deep-seated feeling of unrest when I say this. Jonathan, but, I think whoever is behind this, is inviting you to partake in their mind games. Jonathan, so far, they have coerced you into the involvement of their misdeeds, trespassed onto your online ID, and taunted you through the means of poetry. Jonathan, none of the aforementioned events resemble any iota of benevolent impulsion. Blake, you're right, I think. But I can't just ignore the fact that someone knows where Sam Stevens is. Jonathan, then, I'll go with you. Blake, you can't. It says I have to go alone, and I can't let you put yourself in danger. Jonathan, we don't know how many people are involved. Blake, it's a public place. I'll be okay. I'm sure. Jonathan, acknowledged. But any worries of a misadventure, you message me right away, and I'll be there. Blake, got it? Jonathan, oh, and put my car on speed dial. I'll have it parked near the area, just in case you need a quick getaway. Good idea. Stop being clingy. Settings. Good idea, Blake, thanks, that's a good idea. A tired Blake sat back on the sofa and enjoyed a cold blue beard. E-screen on. It was already Thursday, the days seemed to all meld into one. Recent days had been so eventful. Too eventful. The cryptic messages, the disturbing events and most importantly, his reunion with his dad, which had made him feel like he'd found a part of himself again. Many hours passed, and Blake slept like, what could only be explained as, a baby log. The chiming persistence of his phone woke him up. It was 1 p.m. All the strange occurrences had left him weary. 6 p.m. came around quickly. Blake filled his spare time with a visit to the communal gym in his complex, shower and lunch before leaving. No one there on the corner. Unvexed, he decided to give it a while just on the off chance. Trying to avoid eye contact, he spotted Hari walking in his direction. As she got closer, he realized it was inevitable they would exchange niceties. Greeted with a hug, Blake became concerned that she might hang around, and this wasn't a good time. Hari, hiya. I am so excited that we are going to the cinema. I was thinking we could go see Gloomy Night. It wasn't just a coincidence she had come down the road, she fully expected Blake to be there. It was like she knew she was meeting up with him and they had made plans. Was he being fucked with again? Most likely. Hari, this isn't the new one though, they are doing a special showing of the original remake. The original remake, how was such an abomination allowed to exist? She wanted to go see that terrible, moody-looking, drama franchise about a yeti that falls for a teenage girl. No surprise there. He'd never arranged to meet her, but assumed a message had somehow been sent to her in his name. He needed to know how and why, without sounding like he'd lost his mind. Blake, so, what were you doing when we arranged to meet? Hari, my work, of course. Hari was unfazed by the mini-interrogation, clearly too preoccupied with excitement about the movie. And, this was getting out of back. Hari was unfazed by the mini-interrogation, clearly too preoccupied with excitement about the movie. And now, Blake knew his work email had somehow been hacked. This was getting out of hand fast, but he had to go along with it for the time being. Friendly, let's go. Begrudgingly, let's go. Settings. Friendly, let's go. Blake, okay, let's go. Hurry, after this, we can go to Saucy Mama's for a love, death by chocolate, love. Watch Gloomy Night. Leave the cinema. Settings. Watch Gloomy Night. Girl, wait. Did you just hear something? Guy, yeah, it came from over there, in the forest. Girl, can you have a look? I'm scared. Guy, okay, for you, I'll go double check. Blake rolled his eyes. The misuse of the expression double check aggravated him. Guy, quick, we need to leave. Girl, okay, let me just grab my things. Guy, we don't have time. Blake, why doesn't he just tell her what he saw? Hurry, he doesn't have time, plus the filmmakers don't need to repeat what we've just seen. We can assume that happens off screen. She's really into this movie. Blake thought. Blake, I'm going to the plumber. Hurry, oh, would you mind getting me some Sparkle Nova candy when you're out there? Blake, sure. Hurry, they don't have it here though, you'll have to go across the road to get some. Blake, okay. Blake exited the screening, took a leak, then instead of wasting part of his life, he stood outside for some fresh air. It was chucking buckets outside. Blake stood under cover from the rain so he could check his phone. The curtain of water unveiled a silver car waiting in the taxi lane, just steps away from the front door. It looked like the one he saw in the park. Yes, it was Trout. He was a taxi assistant. It wasn't obvious from looking at the car that it was a taxi, although most of them weren't. Blake knew he would have to follow the car and see where it went. He shared his location to Jonathan's car and summoned it. Text Hari to let her know you have to go. Leave immediately and don't message Hari. Settings. Text Blake decided it would be best to let Hari know an emergency came up and that he needed to leave immediately. As he was writing his message, Hari stepped outside. Hari, Blake. Are you okay? Blake, Hari. Look, something has come up and I need to go now. Hari, I'll come with you. Where are we going? Blake, no, you can't come with me. Hari, why not? You didn't tell me where you're going. Blake watched as a woman ran up to the taxi and jumped in. They were about to leave. He had to act now. Jonathan's car showed up moments later. He shielded himself from the rain with his coat and made a run for the car's shelter. Hari followed. Hari, so, I can come with you. Blake, no. He jumped in the car, and Hari got in the back. Hari, I won't be any trouble. Trout's car started to pull away. Blake, Hari, you can't come with me. This isn't. Hari, I'm not getting out unless you tell me why you're leaving and where to. Blake, I have to follow someone. Blake couldn't leave it any longer, otherwise the car would go out of sight. He released a sigh of adrenaline. Blake, am I really going to do this? Hari, do what? Blake, look, just be quiet, and try not to touch anything. Hari, well, that's not very welcoming. Blake, I didn't ask you to come along. Blake selected rain mode, and the water on the car windows instantly dispersed into tiny droplets, before evaporating into nothing. Manual mode selected, that way he could keep a car in between them for the whole journey and tail behind without being seen. Following the car for half an hour, they headed into Nustan. The car stopped outside a large house, and the woman jumped out. She'd been let out of the car, that was a good sign. Hurry, who's she? Blake, I don't know. Hurry, then why did we follow her here? Blake, we're not, we're following the driver. Hurry, oh. Hurry. Hurry, are you an undercover cop or something? Blake, no. It's a long story. Blake, I just need to know where he's going. The car started on its way again. The sun had retreated, so Blake was hoping Trout would finish his shift, otherwise, this could go on all night. All the anticipation and waiting was giving him a headache, but it didn't deter him. Patience paid off after another 45 minutes. They had ended up west, in the decrepit part of New Stone. Or as they called it here, Newstown. Crime was rife, femme fatale, and prostitutes aplenty, and the tech was behind the times. Blake considered that Jonathan probably acquired some of his more vintage contraptions and items from this part of town, but couldn't imagine him having any connection to this area. They arrived at the entrance of the docks. When Trout exited his car, Blake found a hill behind the docks to park on and peered down to observe. Trout made his way to the entrance of a warehouse. This is where he was residing. Initially, Blake's instinct was to scope out the area, take his time and carefully plan his next move. But time was of the essence. Maybe Sam was in there. Blake, stay here. I need to go check this out. I won't be long. Hurry, okay. Blake, I mean it, this could be dangerous. If I'm not back here in 30 minutes, call the police and don't leave the car. Blake, got it? Hurry, got it? Blake clenched his fists, his heart was pounding as hard as he envisioned knocking on the door. He took in a deep breath and tried to remain calm, as he approached the warehouse. The door opened before Blake had the chance to announce his presence. Trout looked behind Blake cautiously, to check if anybody was watching. Whatever unscrupulous activities he'd been involved in and witnessed in his lifetime, they'd taken their toll. His eyes were aged and tired, he looked like a man with very little patience. He stared at Blake, got out his phone, held it up beside him looking at a picture on the screen, then glanced at Blake again. Trout, you're the Yuva guy, ain't ya? Trout, he told me you'd become an heir. His voice reminded Blake of the crunching noise of gravel underneath a slow-moving truck. Trout gave an eyes-lowered, knowing look, prodded his temple and then pointed at Blake. Blake, what? None of this made sense. With his mouth slightly agape, Trout's tongue ran slowly across the back of his lower teeth, and like a cobra enticing its prey to the snake pit, he uttered. Trout, come in. The back of Blake's neck tensed up. Taking in a deep breath, he tried to zen as much as he could. About to decline Trout's invite with some hasty excuse, Trout had already disappeared inside. Careful of walking into a trap, Blake peered inside the warehouse. He contemplated his choice of going in unarmed. It was stupid, he couldn't take Trout even if he wanted to, he was all muscle, no fat. But he had no choice now. Alert, Blake inspected and scrutinized the area and followed the clinking noises coming from the corner of the room. Trout pushed a mug of tea into Blake's hand as he entered, and then leaned against the counter in a relaxed manner. Blake stared at the tea. At least he was armed with boiling water. Blake, have you been sending me the messages? Trout, what messages? Why would I be sending you messages? Trout, are you fucking with me? Trout's face contorted and screwed up as he spoke in a sloth-like manner. It was as if every word was a heavy boulder being pushed out the way in order to get to the next. Blake was lost. Blake, where's Sam Stevens? Blake's grip tightened around the handle of the mug. Trout, I did my bit, the body's been dealt with. But let's get this one thing straight. You do your bit, and I do mine. Trout, if I see you tailing me again the deal is off. Trout, now let's stop all this fucking around. You got Mamula? Visibly agitated, Trout tensed his shoulder and tilted his head to the side, releasing a disconcertingly loud crack in his neck. Blake placed his cup down on the table. If things were about to escalate, he hands. Blake, where is Sam Stevens? Take me to him now. Trout, mate, I can't take you to his body, it's gone. I got rid of it like I just told you. Trout, I did my bit as asked. What do you think you're playing at? Blake, why the fuck would I give you money? Who told you to kill him? Trout, what? Releasing a deep chuckle, Trout placed his mug on the counter whilst shaking his head and wagging a finger. Trout, I didn't kill him. Trout, your brother did. Blake, who? Trout, this is a fucking joke, right? Trout, he said you'd become an heir and then in you come, acting like you don't know shit all. Blake, who killed him? Trout, I thought you were aving me on at first, but judging by your face, you don't have a fucking clue what's going on, do you? Trout said this with a sly tone that dripped with slime. A guttural laugh rose out from him again. Trout snatched his phone from the counter and prodded the screen a bit. The low-bellied laughter faded off as he handed the phone over to Blake. Trout, this is what your bro did. Trout looked proud of himself like he was holding the ace, and then did his disconcerting tongue thing again. Blake took the phone and looked at the image on the screen. Immediately his stomach tightened in reaction to the sight. He was too late to save the missing man. A knife protruded from Sam's lifeless body, slumped on a chair. Blood soaked down his top. His face black and blue, just like the picture he'd been sent. Trout was in the background walking towards the edge of the screen, meaning someone else was behind the lens. Trout, that's one fucked up family you got there, mate. Trout, ahaha. Attack Trout. Stay calm. Settings. Stay calm. Trout, now, go sort AAT my money with your fucking brother and tell him to pay me, pronto. Got it? Blake, I don't have your money. Trout, are you back chatting me, boy? Blake heard a click, then saw the light shine off of the switchblade knife Trout had taken out. Trout, I don't really want to go back to the bly, but you answer me back again and I fucking swear I'll cut your fucking tongue out and stick it up between ya meat pouches. Trout, you get what I'm saying? Hurry, put the knife down. Blake, hurry, what the fuck are you doing here? Blake, I told you to stay put. Trout swung round and grabbed Hurry, knife to her throat. Trout, who the fuck are you and why the fuck are you stalking round my warehouse? Hurry stood still and said nothing. Blake, Trout, let her go. She has nothing to do with this. Trout raised his voice, spittle flew everywhere as his rage increased. Trout, I said, who the fuck are you? Hurry, let me and my friend go and we'll leave you be, unharmed. Hurry's tone was firm and calm. She was a completely different person. Trout, unharmed. Trout, unharmed. Trout, if you haven't noticed love, you're not in a fucking position to be given. Before he could say another word, Hurry slipped out of his grasp and in a couple of swift moves she knocked the knife out of his hand and caught it. Twirling round behind him faster than he could process, she hit him on the back of the head with the knife handle. He fell into a pile onto the ground. Blake, did you just kill him? Hurry, no, he's just out cold. We should leave before he wakes up. Blake, okay then. Blake, what the hell just happened? Hurry, I stopped him from killing you. Blake, he wasn't going to kill me. Hurry, how do you know? Blake, I don't. That's not the point. Blake, what's more, he could have killed you. Blake, you did some crazy fast moves back there. Hurry, I'm sorry, it looked like you were going to get hurt, I was just protecting you. Blake, huh? Well, thank you. Hurry, no worries. Ask Hurry if she wants to go to Saucy Mama's. Drop Hurry off at her home. Settings. Ask Hurry if, Blake, how about we get some cocktails to shake off some of these nerves? Hurry, I'm in. She didn't sound her normal, enthusiastic self. There wasn't much talking for the rest of the journey back. They both needed some time to process what had happened. Hurry, they have my favorite. Blake pointed towards an empty table. Blake, okay, I'll just. Hurry made a beeline for the cocktail counter and was already out of earshot. Blake sat down and observed the bar. Moments later Hurry came rushing back holding 2 sundaes, then set one down in front of Blake. Hurry, and here it is, 3 Death by Chocolate, love. She sat down opposite Blake and stared at the sundae for a moment whilst holding a long, dainty dessert spoon. Blake could tell she was savoring the moment like it was some sort of ritual of gratitude. Thanks, that's sweet of you to get me one. Cool, this looks tasty. Say nothing. Cool, thanks, that's sweet of you to get me one. Blake, thanks, that's really sweet of you to get me one. Hurry, it's no bother. You're going to love it, trust me. Hurry had her first taste of love, Death by Chocolate, love, and rolled her eyes. Hurry, Hurry, did you know that there is a rare fruit from Castor that tastes just like chocolate ice cream? Blake, no, not heard that before, who told you that? Hurry, I've tried it myself. She took out her phone and a few moments later on WhatsApp she was showing Blake the information. It looked legit. Hurry, you look surprised. Blake, I am surprised. Hurry, why? Blake took a closer look at the information. Blake, well, this says it's only available on the shadow web and you don't look like the sort who'd go on there. Hurry smiled and raised her eyebrows. Hurry, people are almost always never how we expect them to be. Blake, that's certainly been the case this evening. Blake, that, and you're the only person I know that would use the shadow web for buying ice cream flavored fruit, of all things. Hurry laughed and threw a napkin at Blake, which hit him square in the face. She looked embarrassed and hid her mouth with her hands. Hurry, sorry. Blake, it's okay, I deserved it. Hurry, but no, I didn't get it from the shadow web. I visited a small, local food hut in Castor. Blake, you been to Castor? Hurry, yes, among other places, don't look so surprised. Hurry, everyone was so nice and accommodating, a chef presented it to me and told me that only those with a true heart can experience the sweetness of the yama fruit. Blake, and what about those that don't have a true heart? Hurry, well, I don't know for certain, because as you can see, I'm true of heart. Hurry, but for those that aren't, I was told it leaves a bad taste, and for how long depends on what you've done in the past. Blake, and what does it mean exactly, to be true of heart? Hurry appeared serious whilst deep in thought over the question Blake had just posed to her. She was idly prodding her ice cream with the spoon, not paying attention to how fast it was melting. Hurry, someone who strives to do good. Blake, so you're always good? Blake, what about when you knocked out that guy back there? Hurry, I was saving you. It doesn't count if it's for a good cause. Blake. Blake straightened a napkin on the table and there was a calmness in the air. Blake made sure to get Hurry back home safely. As he sat in his car, alone, the dread sunk in. He'd failed. Settings, he'd failed. Settings, he'd failed. Back. He'd failed. Settings. Resume playing. He'd failed. He had let Sam die. Not only that, but apparently by the hands of his flesh and blood. The revelation that he had a brother was too much to comprehend. The burning question was it all a big misunderstanding, or had Jonathan kept a secret from him? Did he have a brother that Jonathan failed to mention? The picture Jonathan had given him on the USB didn't show a brother. Would Jonathan have gone to the trouble of editing him out? That didn't seem right. Unless, at that time, his brother hadn't been born yet. The rain tapped at the windows as Blake pulled up to Jonathan's house. He'd intended to go home, but this couldn't wait. He had to know. Blake's phone started ringing and no number showed. Due to the most recent events, he worked up the courage to answer. Blake, hello. Bot, hello, you may be eligible to claim for a recent accident. Blake suspected from the robotic intonations of the voice it was a primitive call center droid. Blake, who programmed you? Bot, I was created by the MBI Sherlock program. Bot, I will now assist you with your claim. Please can I take your full name? Blake, it's pronounced eligible, not illegible. Bot, thank you, eligible. Your claim reference number is. Blake hung up and shook his head angrily. As much as he preferred droids to act more human than robotic, the programmers could at least get such a small grammatical detail correct. He shuddered at the thought of how many times a day the electronic voice would say that line. Jonathan, Blake. There you are. Is everything okay? What happened? Blake, is there anything you want to tell me? Jonathan looked confused and worried but didn't offer any dialogue. Blake, a minor detail you forgot to mention when you told me you're my dad. Jonathan still looked mystified and shook his head, shrugging slightly. Jonathan, I don't know what you're asking me, son. Jonathan, you look like you could do with a drink. Jonathan moved over to the drinks cabinet and poured 2 glasses of neat whiskey, handing one over to Blake. The calmness that exuded from Jonathan started to ease Blake out of his tense state. Blake, how about that I have a brother? Jonathan, you don't have a brother. Why would you think that? Blake, I found Trout and confronted him. He told me that my brother killed Sam Stevens. Blake took a sip of the whiskey. The liquor was bitter and made him shake his head involuntarily. Blake, he seemed pretty certain of it. And I know I don't have a brother with my adoptive family, so what was he talking about? Jonathan, I don't know, could he have confused you with someone else? Did he ask your name or identify you in any way? Blake, so you swear I don't have any siblings? Jonathan, I swear. Blake sighed, partly out of relief and partly out of feeling like he was back to square one. Blake, then, at least tell me about Mom, and what happened. Where? Jonathan appeared back. Blake, then, at least tell me about Mom, and what happened. Where is she? Jonathan appeared a little uncomfortable. There was a sea of emotion behind his eyes. Jonathan, I don't think so. Maybe another time, Blake. Insist. Leave it. Settings. Insist. Blake, I can see you're hurt but please tell me. I need to know about my family. Jonathan downed the remaining whiskey in his glass. Jonathan, okay. Jonathan shuffled his weight as if to balance his thoughts. Jonathan, your mother and I went through a rough patch when you were 6 years old. His eyes flicked up with an intensity and fixed onto Blake. Jonathan, I suffered from persistent migraines. I was working hard on computers for lengthy periods, striving to build my own company, to begin my legacy. Jonathan, I became a cantankerous bastard, I know that. Jonathan, and your mother, she was lovely and had the patience of a saint. Jonathan, I worked so hard that it felt like someone was slowly sticking pins into my back, and each time it made me flinch. It felt like I was a fucking hedgehog. At this point Jonathan got up, took the whiskey bottle and topped up their glasses. Blake could tell from Jonathan's language that the alcohol had started to take effect, and he warmed to the fire it had ignited in the old man's fatigued eyes. Jonathan, one night your mother, Rachel, attended a friend's dinner party, so I stayed home to look after you. Jonathan, it was a difficult night, you were young and restless, just as children are at that age. Blake was amused by Jonathan's use of archaic words. Hardly anyone said children or mother. Blake was intrigued to hear more about Rachel. Jonathan, I finally got you to settle down and I watched you fall asleep. Jonathan, the morning after I remember very clearly. You toddled into our room complaining about a painful eye, I was still mid-slumber. Jonathan, your mother started questioning me in a shrill voice, interrogating me about what had happened last night. Jonathan, we had a camera set up in the hallway outside your bedroom, we checked it and saw I'd put you to bed, and at that time you were fine. You never left your room. Jonathan, needless to say, I didn't need a coffee to wake me from my sleep. I couldn't appease her, I didn't have the answers she so desperately needed. Jonathan, you were a hyper whippersnapper, I assumed you must have woken up in the middle of the night and knocked into something. She thought the worst, and what else could she think? Jonathan, Rachel feared that I'd raised a hand to you when I put you to bed. But I would never, ever, harm you, so I was hurt that she would even consider such an idea. Blake didn't bother to ask what a whippersnapper was, he could take a guess. Jonathan avoided the use of old terms at work wherever possible, but around Blake he could be himself. Jonathan, you were upset and confused. And so was I. The accusations flew back and forth, and our relationship deteriorated between myself and your mother. Jonathan, over the next few days you had unexplained bruises appear on your body and around your neck. Jonathan, we'd ask you what happened and you would tell us that you didn't remember. Jonathan, your memory problems got worse. Jonathan, and the relationship between myself and your mother became irreconcilable. Jonathan, after a rather acrimonious exchange of words, your mother decided to go and stay with her parents up in Hollywood, a good 3-hour drive away. The atmosphere had changed, Jonathan looked glum as he gathered his thoughts. A stillness disrupted the flow of conversation. Downing his drink, Blake offered to break the quiet and get Jonathan a top-up. On his return, Jonathan had had enough time to muster up the courage to continue his story. Jonathan, she, of course, took you with her. But you didn't arrive at her parents' house that day. Jonathan, her parents contacted me, and I contacted the police. No one had heard from her. Jonathan, a search party was rolled out that evening. Jonathan, a few hours later, within the early hours of the morning, the car was found parked on the side of the main road leading to Hollywood, with you curled up in the back, fast asleep. Jonathan, the car had broken down, so they think she must have gotten out to flag down help. Then, well, who knows? Jonathan, she was nowhere to be seen. Jonathan, it was a blessing that they found you. Jonathan, relief doesn't even begin to explain how I felt when they told me you were safe. Jonathan, but they never found her. The authorities advised that it was highly likely that she'd been abducted and murdered. Jonathan, my poor Rachel. As his eyes welled up with tears, he quickly looked to the side and blinked them away. Jonathan, I'm so sorry that you'll never get to see her again. It was a lot for Blake to process. He felt like he had gained so much and lost it all in one go. Blake, Why don't I remember all of this clearly? Jonathan, part of me thought you might recognize me when you first joined ICC. Jonathan, but now I can see a lot of this information is new to you. I put it down to the memory issues you were having around that time. Blake took out his phone and loaded up the family picture. They both looked at it. Jonathan, those were happier times. Blake, I just wish I remembered more. Jonathan, I'm certain the memories will come back to you with time. Blake, yeah, I guess. I'm sure some of your stories will jog my memory. Jonathan didn't seem ready to open up more about Rachel at this time. Blake attempted to lighten the mood. Blake, I look pretty old for a 6-year-old, don't you think? Jonathan, what can I say? You were a fast grower. Jonathan, I suppose it didn't help that I wanted to dress you in old-fashioned outfits. When your mother let me, of course. They both smiled through melancholic eyes. Blake didn't ask for any more information that night. As much as he wanted to pry every detail out of Jonathan, it would have to wait. They still had plenty to discuss. They stayed up late and caught up on the missed years, the things they hadn't done together, their likes and dislikes, their travels. Finally, they mused on life's mysteries in the early hours of the morning. Time slipped away quickly. Jonathan, you need to get some rest, you are looking rather disheveled, and understandably so. Jonathan, a significant slumber will refresh your focus for tomorrow. Jonathan set up a spare room for Blake and insisted he sleep there for the night. The softest threads. The pillow and mattress felt like sinking into a cloud made of marshmallows. And, of course, it was one of those high-end smart beds with its own inbuilt e-screen and console. Blake had one of the best night's sleep he'd had in a long time. Morning came and Blake decided to head home. On his way back he checked his phone. One new message, select to unlock. Message from Orlo. Hey Blake. Fancy going for a drink with me tonight at SM's? Settings. Go for a drink with Orlo? Accept. Blake texted Orlo back accepting his invite to Saucy Mama's. Orlo, the best table. Blake, why's that? Orlo, when you look at the building as a floor plan, this seat right here? It's almost the perfect equal distance between the bar and the plumbers. That, and with where the speakers are placed. Orlo pointed to the 6 small boxes dotted around the room. Orlo, the music is at an ideal level here so we won't have to shout. He smiled and gave a cheeky eyebrow raise. Then went back to his relaxed manner, sitting back, comfortable and confident. Orlo, anyway, enough about the aesthetic in here. What do you think of ICC so far? Blake, I like it, I mean, it's ICC. I am so lucky to have got the job out of all of those who applied, it felt like I won the jackpot against all odds. Blake, but now, I'm not so sure it was just luck. Orlo smiled and shook his head. Orlo, you're right. It wasn't luck. It was your talent. Orlo, you were the best candidate for the job and they were right to choose you. Blake, thank you. Orlo, from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're doing a good job so far. Orlo, and what about that Max, she's a bit much, right? Never shuts up. He winked and chuckled, then brushed his hand over his own chin. Orlo, I'm kidding, I love the girl really. Blake, I know. You two make a good team. It's nice seeing everyone get on so well. Blake, you two do chat a lot though. It would be nice to have some peace and quiet sometime. Orlo, you cheeky bastard. The remark made Blake laugh as his eyes scanned the drinks behind the bar. Blake, what would you like to drink? Orlo, Orlo looked up to the side with his hand cupping his chin. His eyes lit up in what seemed to be a light bulb moment. Orlo, you see the cocktail mocker over there? He twitched his head in the direction towards the end of the bar. Blake, the big neon thing with the large sign that reads Cocktail Macre? He could see by Orlo's expression that he was enjoying the witty riposts. Orlo, if you make me a cocktail, I'll read your fortune based on your choices. Interesting. It's a deal. No thanks, I don't believe destiny is set in stone. Settings. Interesting, Blake, interesting. It's a deal. Tall tumbler glass selected. Rounded cocktail glass. Small tumbler with ice cream on top. Strawberry, top selected. Raspberry, top. Blackberry, top. Blueberry, top. Watermelon, top. Black, raspberry, top. Strawberry, top selected. Blake, interesting. It's a deal. Settings. Blake. Tall tumbler glass selected. Rounded cocktail glass. Small tumbler with ice cream on top. Strawberry, top selected. Raspberry, top. Blackberry, top. Blueberry, top. Watermelon, top. Lime, top. Blueberry, top. Blueberry, top selected. Blackberry, top. Raspberry, top. Strawberry, top. Small tumbler with ice cream on top. Strawberry, top selected. Raspberry, top. Blackberry, top. Blueberry, top. Watermelon, blueberry, raspberry, strawberry, small strawberry, top. Strawberry, blackberry, blueberry, watermelon, lime, banana, peach, strawberry, bottom selected. Raspberry, bottom. Blackberry, bottom. Blueberry, bottom. Blueberry, bottom selected. Peach, top. Strawberry, bottom. Blueberry, watermelon, lime, banana, peach, straw selected. Ice cubes. Umbrella. Ice cubes. Umbrella. Ice cubes. Ice cube selected. Umbrella. Submit your cocktail. Umbrella. Umbrella selected. Ice cubes. Submit your. Type the name of your cocktail here and press enter. Try. Settings, try. Orlo, let's see what you've got. Orlo inspected the drink, hovered his hands over it, and wiggled his fingers. Orlo pointed to the colors of the cocktail. Orlo, you're going to have to make an important decision. Orlo, I see something about a gun. Orlo, oh, an umbrella? You've been spending too much time in the rain. That, or you long for a nice warm bath. Blake, you're just making this up as you go along, aren't you? Orlo, SHH, you're interfering with the energy. Orlo, that's everything. Orlo, what do you think? How did I do? Very accurate. It wasn't accurate. Settings, very accurate. Blake, you were very accurate. Spot on with your reading, spooky actually. Orlo looked pleased and very proud of himself. Orlo, knew it? Told you I have a talent. Orlo, mind if I try your drink? Blake, go ahead. Orlo took a sip. Orlo, try is tasty. Blake, thanks. Monday came around too quickly. Blake's mood was as gray as the sky above him. There was a rumble in the distance. Thunder. Lee and Andy were talking in a hushed tone. Blake, morning. Lee, hey. Andy, good morning Blake. Blake, what's going on? Andy, maybe Blake could help? Lee, air. Lee smiled shyly and his eyes darted away. You can tell me if you want to. It's okay, you don't need to tell me. Settings. You can tell me if you want to. Blake, you can tell me if you want to. What's up? Lee, well, I'm asking people to sign a petition to get Andy bigger living quarters. Lee, I wondered if you might want to sign a petition and, well, Andy, if you might be able to talk to Jonathan about it for me. Sure, I'd be happy to help. No, sorry. Hell no. Settings. Sure, Blake, sure, of course. Blake, I'd be happy to help. Andy, oh, that's fantastic. Andy, thank you, I really appreciate it. Lee, we both do. Lee, I'll email over the signed petition to you, let me know how you get on. Blake, no problem. Blake hadn't seen Hari around the office since their cinema date. Maybe she was avoiding him. Max, how about we play odd one out? Orlo, you're the odd one out. Max, wow. So witty. Max rolled her eyes and their laughter echoed. Max, Blake, wanna play? Blake, I'm good, I've got a load of work to get on with. Blake was starting to get a headache, so he decided to sit this one out. Max, HRM. Max, dude. Max, I just got a notification that Kill VR has been voted out of Bly this month. Orlo, how are you even surprised? Orlo, they get selected to leave every time they are up for the vote. Max, it says here, there's a newbie who'll be joining the show next month, and he's a new Stone local. Max, someone called us Brown. Never. Blake, Max, someone called us Brown. Never heard of him. Blake, huh? Blake instantly recognized the name. Blake, did you say us Brown? Max, yeah. Just checking, what's it? Max, it says that us Brown, a New Stone resident, renowned for his imaginative and revolutionary topiary artwork. Max, was sentenced with murder and public unrest for stabbing his wife to death and causing a disturbance by shouting at school kids whilst mutilating his face. Blake didn't know what to think. The man had looked so happy, living a perfect life in the pictures he'd seen on Imagination. The room went quiet. Max, phew, okay. Well, that's dark. Orlo, not gonna lie, that is very Ven. Max, no, Orlo. We've talked about this. Orlo, anyway, I wonder what the damage is to his face. Max, I guess we'll find out when we watch it. Orlo, if it's bad, I give him no more than 3 rounds before he's voted the cut. Blake didn't waste his life watching The Bly, the popular e-screen reality show, set on Broadlane Island, the place where the worst criminals were imprisoned. Each month, one inmate would be voted out by the public and set free, usually killed, and another was voted the cut, meaning they were never seen again. Blake knocked on Jonathan's door. Come in. Blake. Welcome. Blake, is Jonathan around today? He's away at a meeting this morning, is there anything I can help you with? Blake, oh, no, it's okay. Do you have a few minutes to spare right now, by any chance? I was wondering if we might have our little catch-up. Blake, sure, why not? Brilliant. How are you finding it here so far? I really like it. I don't mind it. I don't particularly enjoy it. Settings. I don't mind it, but it's nothing special. I really like it. Blake, I really like my job. I get on well with my colleagues and I feel secure here. Great. That's what we like to hear. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Still working here, doing what I'm best at? I have no idea. I'll be taking over Jonathan's job. Settings. Still working here, doing what I'm best at? Blake, I hope I'll still be working here, doing what I'm best at? Dedication. I like it. What would you say is your greatest weakness? Timekeeping. Attention, Max and Orlo are always distracting me. Settings. Timekeeping. Blake, Probably timekeeping. When I get stuck into something the day whizzes by. Re, welcome to my world, haha. I know the feeling well. It seemed that Re had run out of questions. She became distracted by the trickles of rain that were connecting and winding down the window. She looked comforted by the warm coffee mug, cupped between her hands. Re, I swear, it rains so much in this part of New Stone. Re, if the city had its own personality, I wouldn't know if Central New Stone was trying to wash away its sadness or wallow in it. Blake, maybe eventually it'll drown in despair. Re, probably. Orlo, hey. Orlo, I enjoyed our drinks yesterday. Orlo was alone for once. He smiled, but it wasn't his normal happy smile. It looked like something was bothering him. Blake, me too. Blake, how's it going? Orlo, I'm okay, I guess. Ask Orlo what's wrong. Leave it. Settings. Ask Orlo what's wrong. Blake, you seem quiet, something's bothering you. Wanna talk? Orlo, it's just, between me and you, Max watches The Bly because she's in love with Kill VR. Orlo, the only reason I watch the show with her is because my dad is in Bly. Orlo, I get to visit once every 6 months. Apart from that, the only way I get to see him is by watching the show. Orlo, every few months, Kill VR goes back in Bly for killing someone and gets voted out again. Orlo, my dad is a good man. He tried to protect someone a long time ago and things went wrong. Orlo, I don't know if he'll ever get voted out. Orlo, I just hope he never gets the cut. Blake, oh man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Orlo, no. Well, not even Max knows about it, so please don't mention it to anyone. Blake, I won't. I can see why it would bother you. I hope he gets voted out soon. Orlo, thanks. Exhausted by a day full of complex queries and an enormous effort to finish up his latest project, Blake was finally ready to leave. He'd seen the cleaners come and go in the time he was there, but others had stayed late too. They enjoyed the odd evenings of camaraderie, working late together. The atmosphere felt more relaxed and they usually ordered in food. Not to mention they got the time back. Andy, long day. Andy chirped, in his sincere tone, as he saw Blake in the foyer. It was almost 7, and Blake usually left around 6. Blake, don't I know it? Andy, the clock strikes 7. Time for me to pack up. Andy gave his signature crinkled nose smile. He closed down his systems at the front desk and turned around, disappearing into the room behind the counter. Blake could just about see flecks of rain outside, in the darkness. As he stepped back, Blake could just about see flecks of rain outside, in the darkness. As he stepped outside, the air smelled fresh. His heels made a satisfying clinking sound against the wet stone steps, and he made his way toward the parking lot. A strange whirring noise came from above, unlike any rain he had heard before. The sky produced a dull, metallic darkness overhead. At the front of the building, Blake could make out something on the ground, a few feet ahead. The rain started to fall, restricting his vision. Now getting closer, he realized it was an unconscious worker, their identity unclear in the rainy darkness. Blake, hey, are you okay? Blake shouted out, but there was no response. No movement. As he got closer, the annoying noise grew louder. It was coming from above. When Blake looked up, he couldn't make it out at first, that was until 7, blinding, red lights beamed down on him. He immediately backed away and raised his arm to shield his eyes as he attempted to assess the situation. Bullets and rain came flooding down around him. Close-up image of the drone in the sky looking down at Blake. Settings. He patted down his chest to be sure they hadn't hit him. No. But the bullets had hit the person on the ground. If they hadn't been dead already, IT was certain they'd given up the ghost now. Blake, oh shit. Instinct punched through his limbs, forcing him to catapult towards the office, and a patter of bullets followed him. Blake took refuge under the first ledge he found, protruding from the building's structure. And not one moment too soon. How many other victims were there? Blake, fuck. Before he could react, the spotlight was on him. He'd miscalculated the safe zone. He wasn't taking any chances. Blake sprinted and slipped back inside the building, then ducked out of sight and stayed clear of the windows. He had to warn the others. There was no time to wake up Andy. First priority, Jonathan. Jonathan's office was separated from the main floor, which meant that Blake hadn't seen whether or not Jonathan had stayed late. He made his way to Jonathan's office door and opened it. Blake caught his breath as he saw Jonathan. Blake, Jonathan. You're okay. Blake, there's been an armed drone attack outside the building. Jonathan, drone attack. How many? Jonathan peered over at the window. Blake, I don't know, I only saw one and it shot at me, but there could be more. Blake, there's an employee outside, dead. I didn't get to see who they were. Jonathan, what? Jonathan, this is terrible. Blake, we need to warn the others immediately. Jonathan, of course. As Jonathan got up from his seat, a red light shone into the room, and the drone appeared on the other side of the glass. Blake, quick, move. Blake couldn't help but imagine the next moment as an action film. Everything felt like it was in slow motion. Image of Blake running into Jonathan's office. Setting. He ran in and grabbed Jonathan, just as the drone broke through the glass. The window shattered, and bullets scattered around. As they ran out, smashing and buzzing invaded the room behind them. The drone hurtled into the wall with a loud crash, and the doors closed behind them as they stood in the hallway. Jonathan put his hand to his chest in shock. They both panted, whilst taking a moment to process what had just happened. Jonathan, my gosh. Max, what was that noise? Orlo, is everyone okay? Blake, everyone, stay here. Jonathan, blinds down. The blinds in the office started to automatically close. Jonathan, Lee, can you stream Hive News on your computer for us? Lee, sure. Jonathan, don't put it on too loud, just so it's audible. Reporter, one witness reported that they could hear what sounded like an army of toy helicopters in the sky. Settings. Reporter, they saw red lights in the sky and bullets raining down on pedestrians on the opposite side of the road, before running to safety. Reporter, those living in the central Newstone area are strongly advised to stay indoors and away from windows, until further notice. Reporter, an armed response team has been dispatched and are clearing the area. Reporter, it is estimated that there are a total of 5 rogue drones, circulating the city, one of which has now been disarmed. The weapons attached to the drones are said to be similar to that of an AK-47. Reporter, please stay inside, until further notice. A close-up shot of a bullet-riddled heap of metal was shown, which must have been the disarmed drone. Jonathan let out a worried, but suppressed gasp, as he recognized it instantly. Jonathan, good grief. Jonathan, how could this have happened? ICC drone units deployed. Jonathan, no one has clearance to dispatch and test them. Jonathan, we must stop this. Lee, you can use my computer to access the control panel. Jonathan started to access the master admin controls without a thank you. It was understandable that pleasantries were not his priority here. The screen changed and showed a red loading box, then lagged and froze. Jonathan, Lee, I might need your assistance here. Lee, I've never seen something like this before, It looks like the ICC computers have been infected with some sort of Trojan. The computer screen changed. Deploying additional drones, uploading location for attack. Lee, WW, what does that mean? Lee's voice cracked and shook with anxiety as he spoke. Max, damn, the phone network is blocked. Jonathan ran over to the security console on the wall and tapped in the emergency code. Nothing happened. Jonathan, the security system has been compromised too. Orlo, we're going to have to leave the building. Jonathan, no. That's too dangerous. I can't let any of you endanger yourselves. Agree that you should all leave the building. Tell them about Lee's network in Andy's room. Settings. Tell them about Lee's net. Agree that you should all leave the building. Tell them about Lee's network in Andy's room. Blake, we might be able to access the admin controls through Lee's network in Andy's room. Panic spread across Lee's face. Jonathan, good idea, I'd completely forgotten about that. That could work. Lee, wait, W what? You knew? Jonathan, of course. You didn't think you could set up a network in here without it notifying the system, did you? Lee, I thought it was hidden well enough. Jonathan, Lee, go to locker CQRT for me and type in the code 505. Fetch me the gun from in there. Lee, G-gun. Jonathan, it's there in case of extreme emergencies, and I'd say this is one of those times. A few moments later, Lee came back carefully holding the gun and handed it over to Blake, who was the person nearest to him. Lee, here, you take it. Take the gun. Turn down the gun. Settings. Take the gun. Blake, okay. I'll look after it, for now, I suppose. Jonathan, Lee, do what you need to do, and we'll keep a lookout for any drones. Jonathan, Andy. What are you doing out of your station? Andy, good. Andy, ing. Andy, good Mr. O. Andy, morning. Lee, is he okay? Andy, morning. Andy, W morning. Andy, W warning. It became immediately apparent that something was wrong with Andy. Andy grabbed Max, took out a gun and held it to her head. Lee, Andy. Wait, what are you doing? Andy, security, threat. Image of Andy taking Max hostage. Shoot Andy. Talk Andy down. Talk Andy down. Blake, Andy, can you hear me? I want you to put the gun down, now. Blake, you are putting people in danger. Andy, danger. Andy, threat detected. The gun went off, Andy shot Max. Blake, no. Blood poured from Max's neck as she fell to the ground. Orlo ran over to hold her, placing his hand over her wound to slow the bleeding. She lay in silence, her body in shock as the pool of blood grew bigger. Orlo, no, no, no. Orlo, we need to defeat the zombie apocalypse in Horns, remember. I can't do it without you. Max closed her eyes and was still. She was gone. Lee ran to the back room and shut down Andy before he could harm anyone else. All of the drones were halted through the admin console. Shortly after, police units and news reporters showed up in droves. ICC was closed until further notice whilst an investigation took place and extra security measures were implemented. Days after the incident, a vigil was held for Max, along with those killed in the drone attack. The screen is black. Open eyes. Step forward. Open eyes. Step forward. Jonathan, Blake. Stop. Blake, huh? Blake opened his eyes and felt the cold air rush against his face. There was a tug on his arm. Jonathan pulled him away from the ledge. It felt real. Blake, this isn't a dream. Jonathan, what are you doing up here? Blake, I must have sleepwalked. Jonathan, you sent me a text saying to meet you here urgently. Jonathan, so, I came here to talk to you. Blake, no, I didn't. Jonathan, Blake. Jonathan, since the investigation, after the drone attack, the investigators whittled it down to someone from ICC. Someone who has access to my home system. Jonathan, they said the system was first accessed in the middle of the night, a couple of days before the attack. Jonathan, the same night you stayed over. Blake, I'd never hurt someone, let alone murder someone. Blake, I wouldn't couldn't do those things, the owls, the HG devices, kidnapping, killing an innocent man. Jonathan, I couldn't suspect you solely based on the investigators' findings. Jonathan, but then, today I saw something I wish that I could unsee and unknow. Jonathan, I received this video. Jonathan took out his phone and pressed play. Jonathan, the video was sent to me through the FurReals app, so I know it hasn't been edited and can't be manipulated. It was the video of Trout with Sam Stevens. Blake, I've seen this before, at Trout's, he showed me what he'd done. The video continued playing as the camera panned around to a hooded figure. Blake, it's still going? I haven't seen this part before. Blake watched in disbelief. The figure removed their hood and the face stared back at him. Image shows an angry-looking Blake with red eyes. Settings. Blake, what? Blake, what is this? It can't be real. It looked like him. But it wasn't him. There was so much hate and evil in those eyes. Hi, Blake. I guess you're wondering what the fuck is going on. Let me explain. Those days that just melded into one. The moments you can't seem to remember. The items you misplaced. The conversations that you've forgotten. That's me. That's when I had my time. My fun. Whilst you slept, I awoke. I am a part of you. Blake, this doesn't make any sense. Jonathan, at first, I couldn't believe my eyes. Jonathan, that isn't my son. Jonathan, that isn't Blake. Blake, I'm no hacking genius. Blake, you said it yourself, whoever it was, they managed to get onto the network using your computers. Blake, I have no idea how to do that. Jonathan, I considered this too, but I also know that you observed me checking my Jotpad for the password to unlock my computers before. Jonathan, writing things down is my weakness, so, if by any chance you had looked in my Jotpad, you would have had access to that information. Blake, you have this all wrong. Blake looked at the FurReals footage again. Blake, look, his eyes, they're redder than mine. Jonathan, that could be down to any number of factors, such as wearing contacts, a change in emotions or even the lighting. Blake, so, you don't believe me? Jonathan, it's not that. But we have to look at the facts objectively. Blake, wait, there's a message here with the video. Jonathan, I never noticed this before. Blake, it says from Cable. Blake, who the fuck is Cable? Jonathan, it's an anagram of your name. Blake, I'd remember it if it was me. Jonathan's look was full of hurt and sadness as he realized something. Jonathan, now I understand why the poem, The Owl and the Wood Mouse, was sent to you, and what he meant by it. Jonathan, he wasn't sending you a love story. Jonathan, he was telling you that predator and prey live together as one. Jonathan, that he lives inside you. Jonathan, when you were young, your memory problems, the weird sleeping patterns, the bruises. He trailed off, he couldn't utter the end of his sentence. Jonathan, it was all inside of you. Jonathan, Blake. Jonathan, Blake. Blake, that headache. Blake. Kill Jonathan. Fight it. Fight it. Blake, he lives inside me. Cable, let go. Blake, no. Jonathan, Blake. Your eyes. Jonathan, he's trying to take over. Stay with me. Blake, I must fight this. Blake, think good thoughts. Blake, think. Blake, good. Blake, thoughts. Find the positive words in the next scene before the time runs out. Scroll through the words by pressing the down button. There are 3 rounds. Ready? 25.0, hate. 22.4, think good thoughts. Hate, anxiety. Hope, fear, hope. 15.7, bitterness, kill. Bravery, not enough, bravery. 11.0, kill. 8.1, unloved. Terror, evil, troubled, decay, grief, worry. Kill. Jonathan, Blake. Are you okay? Cable, Blake is busy right now. Blake's demeanor changed. His presence felt cold and calculated. Jonathan, I see. Jonathan, and, you are? Cable, you know who I am. Cable, I've been looking forward to this moment for quite some time. Jonathan, let him go. Cable, it's not that simple now, is it? Jonathan, what is it you want? Cable, to have fun. Jonathan, and all those things you did were fun. Cable leered at Jonathan. Jonathan, you're pure evil. Cable, oh come on now, Jonathan, cut the act. Cable, I saw how much you enjoyed playing detective. Cable pointed to his head. Cable, and he put up a fight. Cable, he tried to shut me out, but ultimately, he gave up on you and let me in. Cable, enough chit-chat. Cable, I want you to know what it feels like every time I lose control and he gets to live, instead of me. Cable, to feel the ground slipping from beneath you. Cable, you ask me who I am. Cable, well. I'm the rip in your parachute, Jonathan. Cable shoved Jonathan. Jonathan's eyes widened as he stumbled back, losing his footing off the ledge. Blake tried to grab Jonathan. But it was too late. Blake, no. Blake, no. Jonathan. Blake let out a yell of pure pain and frustration into the sky. Tension gripped and squeezed at every muscle in his body. His muscles shook, then his knees buckled onto the hard concrete ledge. The sky was a vivid mix of mauve and magenta as the sun was setting. Then gradually faded into a gray teal. Neon blues and purples caught the attention of the eye. They originated from glaring city signs that reflected off the damp, black streets. Blake looked down and saw the vast nothingness, between the ledge he was on and the city street down below. Blake's phone beeped. One new message, select to unlock. Message from, Cable. Forwarded email from ForReals. This email is to confirm that your ForReals video, titled Kilver, Come and Get Me has been uploaded to the public channel. Thank you for using ForReals. Evident Corp Ltd. You have reached the end of the game. Thank you for playing. Blake, the visual novel. Written and coded by Ori Mies. Artwork by Diego Llorente. Adrian Stone. Concept art by Peter Kasim. Proofreading by Cheryl Tanner. User research by Player Research. Chloe Snell. Jhim Verme. Marco Alessi. Megan Lacroix. Ula Karpinska. Trailer by Samuel Lot Jarvi. Main theme music by Sam Dudley. Credit music by Jason Cleverly. Oxygen Bar. Additional music by Yvonne Pledge. His name is Marvin. Ori Mies. Lech. Oxygenetic. Peace of Mind. Soul. Weeping Rainbow. Neon Lightning. Sea Beams. Warehouse. New Stone. I'm Mortal. Dan L. Isak. Block Lake. Special thanks to Player Research. Michael Oden Reeves. And thanks for playing Blake, the visual novel. Written and coded by Blake, the visual novel. Written and coded by Ori Mies. Artwork by Diego. Quit.
Streamlabs desktop document button end stream. Clickable. Clickable. Live to 4128. Clickable. Clickable.